this meeting to order. Good afternoon. Thank you for your attendance today, both in person and the folks who are listening on streaming and watching. This is the committee day of the January 2026 meeting of the Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission at the Lennox Event and Golf Club here in Dyersburg, Tennessee. Commissioner Butt, would you please lead us in the invocation and the pledge?
Let's pray. God and Father in heaven, we thank thee for the privilege of approaching thy throne, for the blessings we enjoy that come down from you, our spiritual blessings as well as all the physical blessings, and the beauty of our state and of our country. Father, we pray that you'll protect and watch over all those who travel, keep them safe. Father, we pray that we will make wise decisions as we meet the next day. Father, we pray that you'll help us always to be thankful for everything that you do for us, and help us always to recognize you as Almighty God. And all this we pray through Jesus Christ, our Lord and our Savior. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If Miss Juliana Adzori would please call the roll, please.
Monty Ballou.
Here.
Brad Botts.
Here.
Stan Butt.
Here.
Greg Davenport.
Here.
Steve Jones.
Here.
Ford Little. John McCarty.
Here.
Rosemary McElhaney.
Here.
Rhonda Moody.
Here.
Chip Saltzman. Haynes Torbett. Steve Johnson. Chris Devaney.
Here.
Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Also, thank you very much. Also want to recognize we have a number of visitors here today. Clarence and Laura Dyes, thank you for your attendance today, as always. Scott Summers, Fred Walker with the Flintlock Group, Mike Stevens, Howie Singer, who's joining us from Canada with DU. We'll hear from him today. Mike Butler with the TWF, thank you so much. Seth Speck with UT Martin, Roman Russian with UT Martin, Tyler Hand with Ducks Unlimited, Brad Cohen with Tennessee Tech, along with Lorna Musgrave, Jack Parnell, and Corey Highway, also with Tennessee Tech. Thank y'all for being here. And I would be remiss if I didn't also recognize our former commissioners, Tommy Woods from Upper East Tennessee and Wally Childress from here in Dyer County. Thank y'all very much. And also I want to thank Wally Childress for just being an outstanding host. He and his wife Tracy, just thank y'all very much for all you do for us. And thank you. Also, I'd be remiss, too, if Ford Little, one of our commissioners, can't be here today. His father passed away, so if you would please just keep him and his family in your thoughts and prayers. And thank you very much. Do any of the commissioners have anything before we go to the director's report? Director, if you could have your report, please.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning and Happy New Year to all the commissioners. I think everybody's had a great holiday and good to be back together. It's great for me to be here today. This is my home area, so it's always exciting to come back to Dyer County and be with everyone. Hope everybody had a good time with their families over the holidays. I also want to say thank you to former Commissioner Wally Childress for being such a great host, and I don't think any of them are in the crowd with us today, but thank you to all the blind holders that have hosted us over the last couple of days. We've been able to share some time in the duck blind with some local folks, and we're very appreciative of each one of them that gave their blind up for us to be able to share some time to hunt together. These blind owners are actually really good to the Wildlife Agency. There's a lot of folks in this community that have been really good, and I'll talk about that in a minute as we talk about the duck project. This time of year is probably my favorite time of the year because we get to spend time in the duck blind, and really it's a way to share our conservation story. It helps us in our roles in helping with hunting and angling, and again, I'm very excited to be able to do that with folks as I get to come back home and share that with folks and show them what Tennessee's about. I'm grateful for the relationship again with the people in this area. The landowners and community have always been here to support us, whether that be the guys with the local National Wild Turkey Federation chapter, whether that be the landowners that share their duck blinds. Most all these folks in this area are really valuable in helping support conservation. We're going to hear several different presentations today. We're going to welcome Dr. Brad Cohen from Tennessee Tech for an update on the Mallard Telemetry Project. I believe this is one of the best projects that this agency's ever engaged in. I'm very thankful for the Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission, several of those that aren't on there anymore. Chairman Box, she got this project started. Again, I think it's one of the best projects that's out there. It's known nationwide, so we're very excited to hear an update. Brad, you've done a great job picking good students. These students are loved by this community. They've been embraced by the community. I was working out here before going to the headquarters office when this project started, and we held a meeting at our Dyersburg work base, and we brought several community members in, asked them if they would give them permission to get on private property. They embraced them. They've given them housing. They've allowed them to have different places to stay, take them hunting. But most importantly, it shows what partnerships are all about. The community here really embraced them and embraced this project. They love the project that's out there. So thank you, commissioners. You supported this. You helped fund this project. It's going to be coming to a close, which Brad will talk about. I'm sad to kind of see that, and hopefully later on we can pick some more of this up. But the data's known nationwide. They've presented all over the country on this. It's a very exemplary project. So thank you, Brad, to you and your team, and he'll share more about that in just a minute. Also, other partners that are going to be here, we've got DU partners from Canada all the way to here in Tennessee. So conservation doesn't happen without partnerships. We're very excited to hear the reports from both of those, so look forward to seeing you guys come up in just a minute. Ducks Unlimited has been a great partner to the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. They've helped us get a lot of properties purchased, a lot of land developed, and habitat on the ground. Partnerships make events like the First Time Fowler's Ladies Duck Hunt. We just shared that here in this area a couple weeks ago again. Another example of the community really embracing and sharing their blinds. You can see there on the slide just some of the ones that were shared there. But this event was led by the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Foundation, and TWA is proud to be able to assist with that. Typically what happens, they come out, they will have a field day at Ben Parker's place up near Sandburg, and these ladies that have never handled guns many times get to learn safe gun handling techniques, and this is where our staff will help with that. They say that that's one of their favorite parts of the event. They do that the first day. They get to shoot clay targets, get in a simulated duck blind, and then day two they go out to the private blinds and get to share a waterfowl hunting opportunity with other ladies. So it's been a special event to them. So thank you. Commissioner McElhaney and Moody have both been mentors. Appreciate you ladies helping with this and mentoring in there. So thank you for that. Excited to officially proclaim the new Hatchie WMA. We brought this to you last meeting, commissioners. This adds 7,000 acres of public lands here in West Tennessee, and it was made possible through those partnerships. We saw the National Wild Turkey Federation that came out and gave us a check for that, but you're going to be seeing a preview of that a little bit later about getting that proclaimed, and we're excited. We're trying to get that done ahead of turkey season so folks can go out and use that area. But that's a big win for this agency, a big win for Tennessee to be able to get 7,000 acres of wetland habitat along an unchannelized river system. So excited to get that in front of you today. Our work to expand access and introduce people to the outdoors keeps Tennessee's heritage hunting strong. These events are some good examples of that. So we're looking forward to continuing this momentum in 2026, and we're very thankful for the service that you all provide. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to turn it back over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Director. And again, I want to thank everybody for being here, and also Chuck Yost, I forgot to recognize you. Thank you for making the travel over from Nashville and representing TDEC here today. And also, this is actually one of my favorite meetings that we have because it's an opportunity to, It's also an opportunity for us to kind of meet with our partners and also meet with our regional legislators. And the hospitality is just outstanding. So I just want to thank everybody again for being here. Having said that, I want to move on with our agenda and recognize the chairman of the Wildlife Commission, Greg Davenport.
Thank you, Chairman Devaney. I'd just like to announce the Wildlife Committee members are myself, Steve Jones, Brad Box, John McCarty, Rhonda Moody, and Rosemary McElhaney. And I'd like to ask Joe Benedict, Chief of Wildlife and Forestry Division, to come forward and talk about I guess, with Dr. Brad Cohen, an update on the Tennessee Mallard project.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, commissioners and members of the public. The director kind of stole most of my thunder here. I just wanted to introduce kind of what you guys are going to hear this morning or this afternoon. He talked about Dr. Brad Cohen and the folks at Tennessee Tech. Corey Highway is a PhD student now, and many of you know him if you're local here. He's going to talk about these mallards that we caught here in Tennessee, in West Tennessee, most of which are on private lands or refuges. Where they go, they put radio transmitters on the birds. Where do they go? What do they do, right? There's been questions in the waterfowl world for decades. What's the value of refuges? How far apart do they need to be? What happens when cold fronts come through? Do the ducks move further south? Do they stay here? What happens in a stale period like we're in now? And so these radios have helped us immensely understand waterfowl movement across the country and even into our partners in Canada. The next thing we'll hear from is Howie Singer, as the director mentioned, talking about habitat that the commission has invested in, the agency has invested in Canada north of the border. We know that most all of our ducks come from Canada. Many of them come from Saskatchewan. And so we've got these radios on the Cohen lab birds. Where they go up into Saskatchewan, they go to other places. And so the agency invests in habitat in Canada so that our duck hunters, our bird watchers will have those birds come south. And finally, we'll hear from Tyler Hand, who's a DU partner position with Ducks Unlimited, and he works here in Tennessee. And this is kind of a vision of our waterfowl coordinator, Jamie Feddersen, for a number of years, and we were able to pull it off about a year ago. Tyler's going around to our wildlife management areas and looking at the infrastructure that holds water, that allows us to flood areas, bring the water off, and manage moist soil and other wetland habitat. And so we're looking at the infrastructure of those areas, the age. You guys, commissioners, have seen things where a structure fails. And if we have a waterfowl structure fail in August, sometimes the budget, the funding, the permitting, and then whatever kind of dirt work it might require is hard to do in time for duck season. So Tyler and our staff across the state and the WMAs are looking at those properties and trying to get ahead of things and get some funding in place to kind of keep those areas up. So it's kind of an overall view of where birds migrate up and down, what they do with the habitats here in Tennessee, the places we're investing in Canada for breeding ducks, and then what we're doing here in Tennessee, again, to continue, as the director said, the legacy of waterfowl hunting and provide a safe place for ducks here to spend the winter and then go back north to breed. So with that, I'll ask Dr. Cohen to come up, and then we'll just roll through the presentations after that. Thank you.
I appreciate you all having me here today. All right, so today we'll be following up a kind of a continuation of the story that we've been telling over the last several years about how waterfowl are relating to the landscape in Tennessee and elsewhere, what we can do as both hunters and managers to promote good hunting and good habitat on the ground here in Tennessee. I'd like to first let you know that this project has funded 6 students, 6 future professionals in our field that are waterfowl biologists. All of them that have graduated have gone on to get fantastic jobs and make a difference. So it's not just right here in the resource, but the future stewards that we're creating. This project is multifaceted. It's been going on now 6 years, and there's a bunch of things going on at the same time. And every time I come, I hit on a little bit of piece of it. But what I want to start with, really, if this will actually play, you'll have to go back and you'll have to believe me, but listen, it all starts with catching ducks. We go out there and we basically create a glorified crab trap. We bring the ducks into this glorified crab trap through bait, and then we go in and we get them in hand. Now, usually what you'll do is you'll put a band on them, but what we do on top of that is we come in and we put a transmitter on these ducks. Commissioners that aren't familiar with this project or are newly onboarded, these transmitters take one GPS location every hour. They're solar powered, and they text us the data. So if the duck is in Canada, we know it. We've had them go to Russia, we know it. We've had them go down to Louisiana, we know it. Real-time data. And so we send them on their merry way, and at the same time we collect a lot of other auxiliary data to figure out exactly why ducks are doing what they're doing. Here's all crunched in. I didn't want to give you the very large view of ducks going to other continents, but there you go. There's just some of our GPS locations for our ducks. And we get cool tracks like that. Now you can't see it great with the purple, but maybe with the yellow. First thing that I'm going to harp on is like these ducks are traveling thousands of miles. When they migrate, they travel 60 to 100 miles an hour on a good tailwind. They magically wind up typically in about the same place every year. So this is an animal that's traveling thousands of miles and coming back home, whether that's home in the breeding grounds or home on the wintering grounds. Here's another good track of what it looks like. You get the idea. I'm going to start actually with this story for commissioners that haven't seen this before about one of our ducks leaving, because I'll bring them back in a second. Long story short, our ducks are making their way out of Tennessee by starting in mid-March, but really peaking by mid-April. Okay? That means that if we want water for waterfowl in Tennessee, we need to be leaving water on the system at least through the end of February and preferably through the end of March. We shouldn't be taking water off of our fields any earlier if our primary goal is for waterfowl habitat. Where do they wind up breeding? Well, certainly the eastern Dakotas are critical habitat for where our ducks are coming from, but a little bit in Manitoba and a lot in Saskatchewan. So that's what you're looking at as a heat map of where our ducks are actually nesting. And the black outlines the prairie pothole region, but the long story short is, yeah, multi-country, but especially Saskatchewan and eastern Dakota's critical habitat for the ducks that come to Tennessee. What does it look like when they start migrating? Well, they push down in waves, and I'll go cover that a little bit more, but you're going to watch them. They're just kind of hanging out, time's going on, and here they come. And just synchronous. Here they come. Push, push, push. And then in that bottom right-hand corner, that's basically Tennessee, and they just typically all kind of push back home. What's crazy, and one of the big things, first thing that's stunned me about this project was most of our ducks never left Tennessee once we transmitted them, and then they came back to Tennessee. But what's even more interesting is that they're done with their migration by January 1st. Let me put it another way. The ducks we have here right now are our ducks. The ones that are on White Lake right now, those are White Lake ducks, and we are the stewards of them for the next 2 to 3 months until they leave. Some of them, based on our data, have been here 5 months. Will be here 5 months, have been here since October. Okay? So we have to provide these resources, and we have to provide them early and often. 25% of our ducks come back to the exact same spot. I mean, they swim in the exact same puddle, okay? But if you look at it on a broader scale, about 50 to 60% in any given year of our ducks are coming back to the general region. By general region, I mean like, last year they were at White's Lake, this year they're at Lake Isom. The fidelity is unreal, and I know I keep stressing it, but it just blows my mind. It's just neat. This duck traveled close to 8,000 miles and went right back to where it started. So we've been doing a lot of science with our students, and I won't burden you with the actual logistics of that science, but I'm going to hit the high notes of some of the big progress we've made, especially a master student named Lydia Holmes, and she did a fantastic project looking at why are ducks distributing themselves across the landscape the way they are, and how do we manage habitat, especially on our public areas, to make sure we have the most number of ducks that we possibly can. I'm going to just give you the answer instead of telling you the analysis. Here it goes. Ready? Thinking about it on a landscape scale as a public agency for TWRA, I'm thinking about it like at a 10-mile buffer, but it's the same if it's a small property that you're managing or a very large landscape scale like for the feds. What matters for where mallards are putting their butts down and settling during the winter? Where are they finishing their migration? How do we get them to choose Tennessee? The first thing we need is water. Water's critical, and it peaks out at about 46-50% of the landscape being water. Anything more than that, gravy, doesn't matter. But if we have half of our landscape covered in water, ducks are going to choose to settle down here. That tells me water pumping early, often. If we don't have a backwater like we haven't had this year, it means that things are going to be a little tougher, and those ducks that would have normally come to Tennessee are going to come look at Tennessee, and they're going to go over, cross the flyway, or cross the river, I should say. Check out Missouri. Check out Arkansas. A lot of our ducks have done that this year. The big topic right now is about flooded corn, and we have done extensive research on the importance or lack thereof of flooded corn. This area Western Tennessee is packed full of it. And I am telling you right now, our analysis clearly shows that if you want ducks to distribute down, you don't need a lot of it. 2% to 4% of the landscape having flooded corn is more than enough. And if you pass 5%, it's actually negatively correlated with duck abundance. In other words, it starts to become so homogeneous, so similar to everything else, they stop coming. Remember, mallards want variety. The second we start raising monocultures, we lose our mallards. And then this is a weird one, it's a sciencey one, but water agency, that's just like the complexity of the environment, right? Do we, instead of a big pond, do we break it up a little bit? Do we provide structure? I think of something comparing White Lake to Lake Lauderdale. If you haven't seen them, commissioners, you know, one is more wide open in agriculture, the other has more structure. Clearly, with our data, it's suggesting that ducks are liking the multitude and heterogeneity or the variety in structure. That's how we get them. Now, on a side note, how do we bring them back? We did an analysis right here. That's, by the way, that's a landscape you're looking at. That is a landscape that would be the best landscape we could create for ducks. That's what it looks like. Okay? Now, the next analysis we ran is, okay, they stopped here. How do we bring them back? The only thing that mattered on whether a duck was going to return was the percent of area of sanctuary on the landscape, or refuge. So we can provide the habitat, and then if we add the safety, we get ducks and we bring them back. You only need the landscape to be about 4 to 5% of safe area. After that, doesn't matter. But if you get to 5% of our landscape to be refuge, we would basically have the highest probability of imprinting birds, and would probably double the amount of imprinted birds we have right now. Okay, I mentioned sanctuary. Why is it so important? Well, let me tell you this, commissioners. We fly in planes as part of this project, and we look at everyone's blind, and everyone's blind sticks out more than I can tell you. You should never be able to shoot a duck because they are that easy to spot. But what's even more easy to spot is the spinning wing decoys that you're using while you're hunting. We could see that from the plane. So we marked every single blind in our study area and then figured out where they were being hunted by the amount of spinning wing decoys that were on. 93% of them had it on one day, 80 the next. On average, it's over 80% of our blinds are being hunted in West Tennessee throughout the season. Doesn't matter if it's a Saturday or a Wednesday. Doesn't matter if it's the morning or the afternoon. Here's our favorite area. This is Reelfoot, and this is, this is the firing line for ducks. This is not fun. Those are all the blinds, okay? And we should be surprised when they fly over it. This is a beautiful landscape. If I look at it over the top, this is exactly what I said I wanted duck habitat to look like, and then I just throw blinds on top of everything. And yeah, so clearly the number one most limiting habitat for waterfowl in West Tennessee is our sanctuary areas, is our refuges. Federal and state refuges are the anchor points for our waterfowls to be at. But then how do we get them out of the refuges so that they're available for people to hunt that don't just own land right around the refuge? Most of our ducks are distributed within 2.5 miles. So what we've done is looked at the number of ducks that use more than one refuge. Basically, let me summarize here. Our ducks come down, they create a home base at one refuge, and they never leave. These refuges are little islands of habitat, and everything else is going relatively lesser unused, because they're so tightly packed into these sanctuaries. So, all right, give me a second. Okay, so let me tell you the other part of the story. We went out and we created a bunch of small sanctuary areas. We worked with private landowners and said, hey, look, this is so important to redistribute the ducks across the West Tennessee river bottoms. Let's create small little sanctuaries, little stepping stones on those islands. At the same time, what we did was we went in and we looked at how much shotgun blasts are occurring, or otherwise hunting opportunity. How good is hunting? This is going to be a bad year. Those are autonomous recording units. They just record sound. We come in and we process them out and we say, okay, here's how many shotgun volleys there were. How is hunting this season? We have found, Director Max, in case you were interested, we have 629,942,000 shotgun volleys in your West Tennessee area. Okay, that means nothing. But what does matter is we took areas out of hunting to make these rest areas. How did the addition of rest areas change hunting across the landscape? We know that hunter opportunity, in other words, hunting success across our landscape, stagnates almost immediately after opening day. The ducks are here, they become stale, and we need ice or flooding to break the pattern. But by having those islands, we can also break the pattern because now a duck can go somewhere else to a different sanctuary, relearn its environment. This is what the sanctuaries look like. These rest areas range anywhere from 800 to 300 acres. Here's the bottom line. The second we stopped people from hunting them, it didn't matter. This is very low quality habitat in the sense of forage. There's no food, very little structure. Ducks used it like crazy. This is the number of ducks that used it over time. At first, when there were no rest areas, ducks barely used it. The second we made them rest areas, they used it. That's kind of common sense, right? You give it to them, they will come. What matters most, and this is a graph, but just look at me and trust me, when we added rest areas to the system, hunting was better. So paradoxically, by taking some areas out of hunting, we made hunting better. It's a straight line too. The more we made, the better it got. I'm going to pass that, and I'm just going to show you this because I'm probably way over my time, but this is what we're looking for. This is a duck, 3 years of data, came back every year to the same place, and look at how it traverses the landscape. Look how we have redistributed that duck. Think of that on multitudes and magnitudes, how many more ducks we are creating for people outside of right against the refuges, right against our safe areas to see. We are spreading them out, and hunters are benefiting. With that, I'm happy to take any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen. I really appreciate your enthusiasm as well.
I love this. This is so cool.
Is there any comments from the commission or questions for Dr. Cohen? Commissioner Moody.
Dr. Cohen, I would just like to, yes, number one, say thanks for your passion and all the work you and your team have put into this. But I would be remiss if I did not state how upset I am with you at this point. I specifically sent you a text before Christmas and said, I'm going hunting. Where are the ducks? I need to know. Crickets.
Director Maxon, you would be happy to know.
did-
I did not share that information.
You didn't
I did
even
not
answer.
do that.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
No problem.
That's why it's called hunting. You got to look for it.
Any other comments from the commission? Commissioner Blue.
Hey, Dr. Cohen, thank you again for everything. But hey, it's always interesting to have you. One question. Does West Tennessee need another refuge? And if we do, where would it be? Where are we lacking, or do we have too many? I mean, I never, and I may have missed that, but
I think the data, you give me an unlimited checkbook and an unlimited impracticality if I get to pick. I would rather have many small areas that can have somewhat reliable water spread across the system, pockets of 50 to 80 acres of refuges up and down these river bottoms, than focus on buying a wetland that was singular refuge 500 acres. That's how I would take our data to create the best hunting opportunity. Focus on smaller tracts that you feel like you could reliably get water on most of the time through backwater or pumping or whatever. Don't worry about what the landscape features themselves are, because that won't matter. The ducks are there for safety, and just put them across the landscape.
thank you.
Commissioner Butt.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen. We've had this discussion before, and I would encourage you to coordinate with the agency to provide the new commissioners the opportunity that we had several years back to go and catch some of the ducks in those areas and participate in that process. It's eye-opening, and it's quite frankly a lot of fun, and we appreciated that opportunity. So I'd encourage you to make that happen, since we probably had about 7 new commissioners come on since then. So
This is the last year too, so we'll try and make it happen.
I have a question. Did you say how many years? Is this a 3-year study continuing for 4th?
So this project has been going on now. This is finishing up its 7th or 6th year. This has been a long-term study. This data, just so you can understand, is being used not just for the state of Tennessee. I think Director Maxidon said it correctly, not to be too to lack humility, but it's been nationally recognized, and we're using this data to coordinate with partners everywhere from Canada on down. So it's what we're starting to gain is these multi-year data sets that we can understand what's happening in Tennessee, not just in the low water levels or high water levels, warm seasons, cool seasons. So that's where we're at now, where this is finishing up the 6th year.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen.
Thank you.
Joe, are you okay me calling Howie up? Yeah. Next up, we've got, excuse me. I'd like to welcome Howie Singer with Ducks Unlimited of Canada for an update.
Thank you for having me, commissioners, directors, and the audience. It's a great pleasure to be here. My name is Howie Singer, and I'm the manager of state partnerships for Ducks Unlimited Canada. And today I'll talk a little bit about what the state partnerships program is for DU Canada. I'll kind of give a report on 2025 funding that the TWRA sent to us for habitat work to produce habitat for waterfowl in Canada. And then I'll just kind of summarize on that program a little bit more about kind of what we've done as a partnership over almost the last 50 years with Tennessee. So I always like to start out, I'll go back a step. My career with Ducks Unlimited started out as a research biologist for almost 10 years with them. And what we're a science-based conservation organization. So the decisions that we make in Canada on where we're going to spend constituent dollars is all based on the research that either we have done within DU Canada or folks like Brad have done down here or anywhere across the US and Canada. We like to be able to tell people, hey, like this is what the science says. This is what we're going to do with your dollars, and these are the reasons why we're going to do it. So we are a science-based conservation organization and have a branch within the organization that's been around for almost 30 years, published close to, I think, 850 research papers, peer-reviewed papers, partnered with 40, 50 different organizations, institutions, colleges. A lot of students have come through there. So it's really a science-based decision that we're making there. So the Fall Flights program, that is kind of the state partnership program. And what it is, it's not a Ducks Unlimited program. It's a program through the Association of the Fish and Wildlife Agencies, AFWA. And it was created to support the North American Waterfowl Management Plan. So just a brief history on that. 1980s, duck populations were low. Managers from Canada, Mexico, United States got together and realized, hey, we need to do something here in North America. Our duck populations are, they're really down. What's the goal and what's the mechanism to reach this goal of maintaining waterfowl populations at long-term averages? Well, that is basically conserving habitat in Canada. We'll talk about why Canada on the next slide. But the goal is to get this program to grow to $10 million annually from all the lower 48 states. That's by 2031. And each state has a goal based on the number of hunters and the number of waterfowl harvested over the range of from 2000 to 2019. So I just pulled a couple of the goals here from some states are in the Mississippi Flyway surrounding Tennessee and Tennessee's goal. You can see Arkansas, they're around $700,000. They shoot a lot of ducks. They have a lot of duck hunters. So their goal is going to be higher than, in Alabama or Mississippi or Tennessee. You guys are shooting, fewer ducks than them. There's fewer duck hunters here. So the goal is kind of proportional based on, representation. So why would you send your dollars out of the country, right? That's a huge question. There's constituents in the state that they want a place to be able to hunt ducks. They want to see habitat for wildlife here. So why send it to Canada? There's a couple really good reasons for that. So the breeding season is one of the most important factors. This is for mid-continent mallards. So mallards going into the prairies. 76% of the vital rates are impacted during the breeding season. So that is the most critical time for waterfowl. And the waterfowl that you guys are all shooting here or seeing here in Tennessee all come from Canada. And as Brad showed, and I'll show in another slide, a lot of those birds are coming out of Saskatchewan. The data that Brad's shown, band recovery data, so they ban birds across the prairies, across Ontario, Eastern Canada. It all shows the same thing, that the majority of the birds come out of Saskatchewan, some come out of Manitoba, and also out of Ontario. This is just a quick summary of the last couple of years of breeding ducks. Most of the ducks come out of Canada, 66% versus 34% in the United States. So again, just kind of reemphasizes the strong need to support breeding ground conservation work in the Canadian prairies. And also, Monty and I chatted about this one here. So North American active waterfowl hunters, 90% of those in the United States. I always joke, really, like the work that we're doing in Canada, it really wouldn't be necessary for the small fraction of duck hunters in Canada if it was just about Canadians shooting ducks, but it's not, right? As everybody's mentioned, Director Maxidon mentioned, Commissioner mentioned it. It's a partnership. We're doing this with everybody in mind. It's not just for us. It's not just for you guys. It's a great partnership, and that's really what drives kind of the work that we do. And then one of the great things about the Fall Flights program is the exceptional match. So every dollar that the TWRA sends up, or any state for that matter, DU is going to match that, both DU Inc., DU Canada. So that becomes $2. Then the North American Wetland Conservation Act, that allows us to access those funds. Those are federal funds here in the United States sent up to Canada as match for state dollars and DU dollars. And then with the conversion to Canadian, it's $5. So $1 invested by Tennessee basically becomes 5 Canadian roughly with the great exchange rate over the last few years. So we can really turn that dollar into some great habitat work, especially when we're using science to tell us, hey, where can we get the best return on investment for each dollar that we're going to spend on the ground? And this is just an example of that. So Tennessee was kind enough to send us $166,000 last year, FY25. We matched that. NACA matched that. The exchange gain. So that one, or $166,000, was almost $900,000 that we were able to spend in Canada in the areas where there are high densities of breeding ducks that are going to be coming back to Tennessee. And you'll see kind of some of those areas here, and I talk about the work that we're doing. And this just kind of reemphasizes what we've talked about a little bit already. This is just some raw unadjusted banding data. So it just shows that Saskatchewan is the province where most of your birds come from. Ontario is pretty good. Also some birds out of Manitoba. And then birds are going to come out of the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin as well. And I think this is a really neat map here. What this shows is basically like high densities of breeding ducks in Saskatchewan. So you can see the black outlines. These are what we call target landscapes, and there's about 15, 16 of them or so across the province. I can't remember the exact number, but you can kind of see them there. And then the colors show different densities of breeding ducks per square mile. So in the red, you've got up to 60 plus pairs per square mile, and some of those there might be 100 pairs of ducks per square mile breeding. So these are the areas that we focus on in general, and then we work with private landowners within these landscapes on different habitat programs, which we have a whole suite of habitat programs that we focus on. It's not just it's not just land purchases. We do perpetual conservation easements. So the landowner keeps the title of the land. We put an easement on there. That means that the wetlands and the upland habitat for breeding waterfowl will always be intact. That's on the title of the land. We also buy land, and the land we buy in Canada, we manage it for waterfowl and wildlife habitat. It's open to public hunting, trapping, things like that. It's just non-motorized use only. So there's a lot of lands in Canada you can come up, you can duck hunt on, you can grouse hunt on, you can walk around, just some really nice areas across the landscape. And then we do shorter 10-year habitat agreements with landowners. They might want to, get into some cattle farming, so they'll convert annual crop lands into perennial cover and keep that for 10 years in the landscape, just providing some habitat benefits for ducks. Then there's planted nesting cover. That's a land like where we will purchase land. We'll plant it into species, perennial species that we know from research have been proven to provide high density nesting cover for waterfowl. And then fall cereals, winter wheat in the prairies is established in the springtime, is established in the fall. And then in the springtime when it greens up, that provides nesting cover for a real important species for pintail in particular. They're an early nesting species and they like to nest in wide open fields. So when they have this early cover, they'll use those fields over others and have much higher, up to 24 times higher nest survival rates than just nesting in a bare open field that's gonna get seeded later. And then also we have to do a lot of habitat management. Saskatchewan, we have about 1 million acres of land that we manage there. When I say manage, we're making sure that the easements are there, the habitat's intact. If it's for grazing, the lands are fenced so people can graze it every couple of years. We also hay lands every few years. We just want to make sure that the land is managed and the habitat is good for waterfowl when they're there. And so last year, this is just kind of a breakdown by the initiatives. So habitat protection, these are all programs that are 10 years or longer. We did about 2,500 acres with TWRA funds and match funds at a cost of approximately $150 per acre. The land purchases are much higher, $2,000 or so an acre, but some of the programs only cost $75 to $100 an acre. So it averages out to not be too much per acre to do that type of work. And then about 1,400 acres of restored habitat. So that's habitat that would have been an annual cover and converted to perennial cover for a little bit of time. And it's a lower cost per acre. We're helping landowners with the establishment cost. And then the lands that we manage as well, pretty low cost on that. It's the stuff that we have to do every year, particularly with a growing portfolio of lands. And I just want to highlight one program or one project here. This is a piece of land that we bought last year. A really cool piece, the Lacage purchase. It's 1,200 acres and a lot of wetlands, 300 acres, 900 acres of upland habitat, and it's in an area with some really high density. So the red is the highest. I think in this one you're looking at 41 to 50 pairs per square mile. So it's in a prime landscape. It's kind of on the, I guess it'd be the eastern side of Saskatchewan, that map that Brad showed with the birds kind of going through Manitoba and Saskatchewan. This is right in the heart of that kind of flyway, if you will. And this is what it looks like. It's not great to see here, but you can see all those little like potholes on there. There's 40, 50, 60 wetlands in some quarter sections of land there on the habitat. And this is what our conservation staff looks like when they're going out to do a land purchase or to do a habitat restoration project. They're going to look at this. This is a quarter section of land, 160 acres. They're going to see, there's 15 or 20 wetlands on there. There's a lot of areas where there could be perennial cover for, upland nesting habitat, which ducks need. And that's kind of how we make the decisions when we go out to look at pieces of land. So this is just a quick video. We'll see if it works here. We tried it earlier. Yeah, this just goes to show a little bit of this purchase. So that's kind of what you see from, the drone footage. TWRA has been up to Canada quite a bit. This is a part of the Fall Flights program. We want to bring the commission, state agencies up there, folks to see the landscape, to see the habitat work where your dollars have been invested. So it's something that we do. We'd be great at some point to have Tennessee come up there, see some of the work. This was this was 2 tours ago, and I think 2017 or 2019 out of Yorkton, Saskatchewan. And this was commemorating on 30 years of conservation. But I think right now we're almost at 50 years of conservation work with TWRA and Ducks Unlimited. So it'd be great to have everybody come up at some point and see the landscape. And just kind of to summarize everything, so the Prairie Habitat Joint Venture, that's kind of the overarching organization that provides the goals to support the NAWAMP. It's tagged at over $500 million. We've done a ton of habitat work. We do a lot every year up there. There's still a long way to go, and we're getting there. As I mentioned, you know, with the science that we do, we're leveraging your dollars. We're putting your money in the most impactful areas with the best programs each year, and we always review that on an annual basis to make the decisions on where to invest. And Tennessee ducks come primarily from Saskatchewan, so it's grateful that you know, we can do the habitat work there in the province that needs it most. And one of the big things there, a lot of wetland drainage, a lot of habitat loss. So with money, we can, you know, keep wetlands on the landscape by protecting them perpetually, and with conservation easements. And with that, I would really just like to say thank you for nearly 50 years of continued conservation partnership. I think the partnership started in 1968, so we're really close to 50 years. It's been amazing. I've only been around for 10 of it, but you can see the impacts every year when ducks start migrating back to Tennessee and beyond. So thank you on behalf of DU Canada for everything.
Howie, thank you so much. I just can't say enough how much we appreciate the relationship, especially the way that you basically 4X leverage our dollars, and then you also spread it around the ground so well. So thank you very much for that. Very appreciative. And there's a point right there that said, you know, most of the ducks that come to Tennessee, the majority of them come out of Saskatchewan. So that's very important. So is there any other comments or questions from the commission? Commissioner Box.
Howie, how are we doing overall percentage-wise when you compare habitat lost to habitat restored?
Yeah, so some provinces better than others. Manitoba, I'd say, it's been a really good success story. There's some wetland policies in Manitoba that are protecting certain class wetlands. Alberta has those as well. Saskatchewan, unfortunately, has been kind of deemed a pro-drainage province right now. So we're losing a lot of wetlands there. But overall, I mean, we are making progress, I think. You know, historically, a lot of wetlands were lost. On drier years, we do see a lot more wetland loss because farmers are able to kind of, we call it pushing bush. So basically, you know, small wetland that maybe is the size of this room has some brush on the outside. Farmers will go in there on dry years and literally bulldoze that wetland in, and it's a kind of wetland loss forever. Right now, we're in a little bit of a dry period in the prairies. You know, duck populations have gone down since the peaks around 2015, 2014, in that time frame. But, you know, we're making work. There's other organizations doing the same thing, advocating for wetland policy, you know, trying to work with farmers on the landscape to keep habitat intact. So I don't think it's a losing battle. I'm optimistic about it. I mean, it takes partnerships, right? That's why the goal of this program is to try to increase it. Right now, we're at about 5.5 million. Try to get it to 10 million, try to, you know, keep the word out there, spread the word that habitat conservation is an important thing. Like, we can't just stop doing this, I don't think. I think if we do, we're gonna have some major issues, not just for waterfowl. Hopefully I answered your question there.
Thank you, Howie. Next up, we have Tyler Hand with Ducks Unlimited Incorporated to give us a partner project update.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name, like you said, is Tyler Hand. I'm the biologist with Ducks Unlimited for Tennessee. I'd like to kind of, you know, reintroduce myself. I was introduced by Joe last December to the Commission. I had started my position in May of 2024, but my position is a cost share position that TWA and DU have partnered on to focus on identifying, prioritizing, managing, and ultimately delivering wetland restoration projects on state WMAs and state refuges across the state. So I'm excited to be here today to be able to share with you all of the hard work that we have done in the last year and a half or so on this endeavor. This slide is a good outline of the state of Tennessee and identifies all the different WMAs and state refuges that either a project has been completed on, is in a current stage of development or permitting, etc., or has been identified as a upcoming project through the years 2024 to 2030. So the biggest takeaway from this slide that I want you to have is just the impact that we are trying to put across the state. We're not just focused in one portion of the state. We really are trying to emphasize wetland conservation throughout the state. TWA and DU also have an additional partnership when it comes to the budget of some of these projects. On some of these projects, typically projects that are larger scale, larger development, restoration, enhancement projects, we have a 75-25 project budget split. So currently TWA is committing $500,000 every fiscal year towards these projects, and then DU is committing a minimum of $125,000 towards these projects. So within these projects, we've also identified a strategic plan or timeline on how to best deliver these projects. And we have now decided that the best endeavor is to divide them into 3 separate phases, and each phase will occur in a different fiscal year. So phase 1 of our projects are going to have survey and preliminary design. We'll roll into phase 2, which is usually the longest because it involves permitting, and then final design on our part within DU's engineering staff. And then ultimately, phase 3 construction is where we'll deliver the project to fruition. In the background of these slides is a project that we completed in 2023 at 3 Rivers WMA in the east unit there. It's just east of us off the Obion River, south of Union City. But I feel like this drone image is a great shot of what a DU project looks like when it's finished. You can clearly see the levees, the impoundments. This is during a spring flood. No issues with this project, no failures. The spillways work just like they were designed, and it's a great landscape capture of what a turnkey project looks like on TWA ground. Reelfoot WMA, but specifically Black Bayou Refuge up north of us there in Lake County. That project's been in the works for a while. It honestly was before my time. I want to say it started in 21, 22. But ultimately, this project was to enhance and restore 184 acres on the Black Bayou Refuge as well as the Philippi unit. 2021 and 22, it was definitely being surveyed and designed. We went ahead and replaced 16 water control structures in 2023. It's just the way that it made sense for this project. 2024, we ultimately spent the whole year permitting. And then this past year, we were able to go in and deliver construction where we restored and repaired existing levees and created 7 new impoundments. This project was completed just before Halloween last year, and I'm happy to say that it looks great. I know that Chase and Larry and Patrick, everyone's really pleased with it. It's already holding a lot of ducks right now, even though food isn't necessarily there because it's a construction year. So I'm super excited for what we delivered, and I can't wait to see it next year when Chase is able to put it to the test with management. This project is at Horns Bluff Refuge. For those of you not familiar with Horns Bluff, it's located in Gibson, Crockett County along the line. The middle fork of the Forked Deer River runs right through the middle of this refuge. The south side of the river is pure refuge. The north side, there is limited hunting opportunities on the weekends. This project has been identified to enhance and restore 139 acres on the north side of the refuge, so in the area that can provide hunting opportunities to the public. This project was in phase 1 during fiscal year 25. We are currently in phase 2 of this project. Permitting is underway. Final design is actually complete. And we are excited to be able to move forward with construction on this project in fiscal year 27. This one's going to be a really cool project when it's completed. It's one that I kind of was able to come in on its early infancy, so I'm really excited to see this one to completion. This next project is at Shelton Ferry WMA. Shelton Ferry WMA is in Montgomery County. It's just south of Clarksville, and it borders the Cumberland River. We have identified a project here to create 6 new shallow water impoundments there in existing agricultural fields. This area has existing wetlands, but they're more perennial swamp wetlands that, you know, have been mostly done through beaver management. But with this project, we will be able to add an additional 90 acres to the WMA. This project's phase 1 was already delivered in fiscal year 25. Because of funding constraints, we had to put it on hold during this fiscal year, but we've identified and allocated the funds for phase 2 to move forward in fiscal year 27, and then ultimately construction in fiscal year 28. Cypress Pond Refuge is located in Decatur County. It's south of Interstate 40, right alongside the Tennessee River. This is a waterfowl refuge that is in need of some enhancement for sure. The goal for here is for us to add up to an additional 75 wetland acres. In that picture, it's probably hard to see, but the blue polygon there is the existing wetlands on the refuge, and it's probably 50 to 60 acres. So ultimately, we have the potential to double the wetland acres that this refuge has, which will have a huge impact for waterfowl use in this area. Phase 1 has been identified for this upcoming fiscal year, and then, like I've said in the previous slides, we'll follow phase 2 and phase 3 in the following fiscal years. But I hope that I was able to portray that, like, those last 3 projects, they're in different phases right now this fiscal year, and we've outlined and identified projects to be in one of the phases every fiscal year. Joe and I and Mark and the director, we really feel that by having a project in one of these phases every fiscal year, it will keep us on a positive trajectory to deliver these projects on a good timeline and not have any type of lapse or hiccup to where we end up inevitably having to waste a whole year because of a situation. So this is the best strategic plan for us to move forward with these projects, the ones that I spoke about on the 75-25 budget partnership between DU and TWRA. So like the director and Howie and pretty much every speaker today is in some form or fashion talked about partnerships, I'm going to do the exact same. Part of my position is also leveraging partnerships, specifically seeking funding opportunities that are outside of the agency to ultimately deliver more conservation work to Tennessee wetlands. The North American Wetland Conservation Act, we all refer to it as NACA, has federal grant dollars available for wetland conservation across this country. Another entity is the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, commonly referred to as NFWF. NFWF also has grants allocated to various landscapes, regions of the country, certain species that they target various grants for, etc. So we're able to strategically go after certain projects when they fit the criteria for said NFWF grants. I also wanted to include that Ducks Unlimited is also seeking any other types of corporation partnerships that we can get funding towards Tennessee work. Tractor Supply is one of those corporate partners. DU has already had a partnership with Tractor Supply in North Dakota and Texas in the last decade, but I'm excited to say that TSC has committed $250,000 to Ducks Unlimited towards specifically to Tennessee wetland conservation over the next 5 years. And that money's already starting to get put to work. This project is at Tennessee National Wildlife Refuge, the Duck River unit there in Humphreys County, just south of New Johnsonville. This actually is on U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service National Wildlife Refuge. This is not on a TWRA state-owned property. This project was already kind of identified when I started my position, but we ultimately decided to pursue a small NACA grant proposal. So about 3 or 4 months in my position, I wrote a small NACA proposal for this project. This project was to replace the inlet pump there on the Duck River unit that provides, outside of any type of Mother Nature or precipitation, it's the only water source for over 3,000 acres there on the Duck River unit, which ultimately is the direct impact of if that refuge has water or does not have water every winter. I'm obviously very excited to say that we were awarded the grant for $240,000 for this project. DU also added an additional $50,000 towards this project in cash. But that's not the only partners. Huge thanks, very grateful for TWRA. TWRA also partnered on this project by providing land acquisition as non-federal match. So when we're dealing with NACA grants, you can bring cash, and cash is king, but you also have to have it be from non-federal entities. So the only way, frankly, that this project was able to really be competitive enough for us to be awarded the grant was by TWRA providing this land acquisition. We were able to use the acres, wetland acres, as well as the acquisition value as that matching dollar. So once again, thank you TWRA for providing this property for us and ultimately delivering this pump project. But we replaced this pump last fall at the end of November. I think it was turned on December 2nd, and they already were flooding units, and ducks were starting to hit that freshly flooded impoundments as soon as they got water. So Tennessee National Wildlife Refuge should have reliable water there in those bottoms for the next 2 to 3 decades minimum. So White Lake Refuge, just west of here in Dyer County. It's a critical area, as I'm sure Brad mentioned repeatedly in his presentation. It is a critical area for ducks in this specific section of Northwest Tennessee. We have been awarded $120,000 of a NIFWIF grant specifically for White Lake to replace the dewatering control structure there. On that image on the right, there's a yellow star. That's the location of that structure. That structure is the only structure that controls dewatering of about 80–85% of all of White Lake Refuge. It's been struggling over the last handful of years. The agency is, able to keep it functioning every year, but it is overdue and time to be replaced. So I'm excited that we're able to deliver this one. The goal is to have that new structure in this fall. Here at John Tolley WMA at the Folan Track, which is located in Lauderdale County, we were also awarded an additional $30,000 of that same NIFWIF grant to go towards this WMA. This project, DU is providing 3 water control structures to TWRA, but it gets a little different. This is where we provide the structures, but then we let the agency handle installation and construction. So heavy equipment and engineering division will take care of that once we provide the structures. Anticipated delivery date of this project is this fall as well. It's not all about the ducks. I know, you're thinking, I can't believe the DU biologist said it's not all about the ducks. But it's really not all about the ducks. Ducks Unlimited, first and foremost, is all about wetland conservation, and there's a multitude of species that rely on wetlands. Ducks are included, fish are included, amphibians, the list goes on and on. This project at Meem and Shelby Forest, as well as at Eagle Lake Refuge there in Shelby County, has been identified to create shallow water moist soil wetlands that have seasonal connectivity to the Mississippi River, which ultimately will not only provide great waterfowl habitat, but it can also provide excellent spawning alligator gar habitat. This is just an example of how we can find projects that have multitude of benefits for multiple species, but we can also target specific funding for a species that will ultimately affect everything. So with this project, I think Jason Henniger's here with us today. I want to also give a shout out and thank you to him. TWA Fisheries Division funded this phase 1 of this project. The Fisheries Division is highly interested in this project, along with Wildlife Division and Ducks Unlimited. So we began surveying preliminary design this past November with the ultimate goal of taking that preliminary design, the total estimated project cost, taking that knowledge, seeking additional partners with Nature Conservancy and other entities, and ultimately taking that to write a 2026 NIFWIF grant proposal to seek funding for the entire project. So stay tuned to that one. Hopefully it pans out and I can be here in 2 years telling you about this great project that we've got gars and ducks in the same hole. And I don't mean a gar hole. Lastly, the third category that I want to talk to you about of ways that DU is putting projects on the ground here in Tennessee are projects that are 100% funded by DU. These projects don't cost the agency anything. These are just projects that we're able to provide across the state. It's kind of almost like my little small project list, if you want to think of it that way. So when I first started in spring of 2024, I was able to provide lumber material to the agency, which ultimately, through the volunteers at local high school wood shop classes, produced 350 wood duck boxes that were distributed out to Old Hickory, Cheatham WMA, and Percy Priest WMA. For this fiscal year, I identified a strong need for water control structures to be purchased, as well as their pipes, and provided to Uchee Refuge and North Chickamauga WMA in Region 3. Also this fiscal year, we have a planned bottomland hardwood tree planting on around 23 acres at Percy Priest WMA, weather permitting. It was planned last spring, but it stayed flooded all the way through May. Looks like conditions are going to be right for us to accomplish that one this spring. So these are just some of the small projects that DU is able to fund completely in-house and provide the agency. And I'm excited to grow this and continue to keep adding to this list. And with that, I'll take any questions that anyone has.
Yeah, thank you, Tyler. That was very informative. A lot of hard work and a lot of money from our agency and from DU gets on the ground to help ducks and aquatic life. Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Butt.
Thanks again, Tyler. Well, I have a question. You opened the presentation with a slide that showed nothing but pintails. This past week, I received a slide from an area in Pocahontas, Arkansas, with hundreds of thousands of pintails. How do we attract more pintails to Tennessee, and what can be done? That's one question, and I have a follow-up if you want to address that first.
How can we attract more pintails? That's a good question. Pintails are finicky. Pintails, they migrate early. They like really, really shallow water. They're very weary birds. How do we attract more? I'd say a lot of these developed wetland projects that we've identified, they're all shallow water. I mean, we're talking ideal depths of, 6 to 12, 18 inches tops. I think if you're able to have more areas on the landscape that were shallow water. That's an ideal foraging habitat for pintails. That's a start. It's really hard to steer where the pintails want to go when they come all the way from Canada. So hope that answered some of your questions.
So you're saying one of the director's favorite areas, moist soil areas, 18 to 20 inches of water would do that trick?
Yes, sir. I'm not saying pintails won't eat corn, but they prefer very small seeds.
A follow-up question, and I'm probably going to open Pandora's box here, but I'm knowledgeable about efforts in Middle Tennessee over water, and the question is, how feasible is it to consider attracting more ducks to the Middle Tennessee area south of the Percy Priest area? And with what was being stated with the dollars, the county, in Murray County particularly, with surrounding counties, Marshall, Hickman, Lewis, Giles, and recognizing more water availability for the growing area. Since we have Yanali WMA right in the middle of Murray County along the Duck River, one of the ideas that came forth was establishing reservoirs off of the duck. The idea came not knowing that the agency had that WMA, but it was referred to as TVA land, establishing reservoirs to pull water out of the duck during high water time for reserves. Would that be possible consideration for attracting ducks for refuge if counties were to provide some funding for that type of operation, or would that be out of the question as far as the location?
Mr. Commissioner, a few thoughts that have ran through my head as you asked your question. I think first and foremost is maybe an issue with the Duck River watershed right now and the concerns of pulling too much water out of that water system. But if that was of no issue, I think that there's a lot of potential along the Duck River at Yanali specifically, where we could identify some areas adjacent to the river where we could do some of these shallow water impoundments where you could pull water from the river at high water times and flood those and provide quality habitat. I am reserved to say that when you use the term reservoir, when I think of a reservoir, and everyone has different terminology, typically reservoirs are deeper water and there's usually less aquatic vegetation that is ideal for waterfowl foraging or waterfowl habitat. So it depends on how the project would be designed or what exactly we're talking about. But I do think that there are potential areas in that section of the Yanali and the Duck River system where we could identify some shallow water areas to improve waterfowl habitat.
Thank you. And so you think it'd be worthwhile in pursuing the possibilities then?
I think it's worth having those talks.
Thank you.
Commissioner Blue.
Yeah. Hey, Stan, you need to get you an RV and plug it in over at No Limits Cafe while they'll let you plug in and just hunt down here. But hey, I've tried, I've looked at some of these projects that you've showed us about today, and especially the Duck River unit project that we talked about a little bit. And I know you all worked tirelessly on that, and that was really a lifesaver for that refuge in that area. And to go over there and see it, I know it was very expensive. I know it was a lot of work, but to see the way that that pumping system works and the amount of water that it puts out is very unique, and y'all did a great job on that. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Monty. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I don't think I really stressed that enough in my presentation, but even though that pump project is on Fish and Wildlife Service property, I would argue with anyone here today that project directly positively impacts every state-owned WMA within the Kentucky Lake Complex. To be quite frank, if Tennessee National Wildlife Refuge at the Duck River unit isn't holding ducks, it directly impacts how well hunter success and opportunity is at Camden, Barkley, Big Sandy, West Sandy, etc. So super happy to deliver that project.
Any other comments from the commission? Thank you, Tyler.
Thank
Very
you.
much appreciated. Next, I'll call Patrick. Patrick Lemons to the podium to talk about our new Hatchie WMA.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. I'm Patrick Lemons. I'm Wildlife Program Manager here in Region 1, and today I'm bringing you two proclamations, the first of which is 2601, establishing the Hatchie River Wildlife Management Area. This is going to be the most significant land acquisition in Region 1 in probably more than 10 years, and that's not just because of the size of it, but the Hatchie River is unique, and that's because it's unchannelized. The quality of wetlands throughout the drainage is impressive. The bottomland hardwoods are contiguous as well. And that makes a vital corridor for both migratory species, aquatic and terrestrial animals. The river on these two tracks encompasses more of 8 miles of river access for our users, and is just a significant increase in that area in public land. The first of two tracks that's included here is 74 acres, 7,400 acres in Haywood, Hardeman, and Madison counties. We've developed 5 access points, and we're getting the parking lots ready. We have 2 boat ramps, one on the south end of the map at Highway 100, and another ramp actually on the property on the north side at Estonale. The second track is further south and is actually upriver as the Hatchie flows north. It's about 1,273 acres in Hardeman and McNairy counties. We have 3 access points gravelled, and there's 1 boat ramp on that property. Hunting seasons we'll talk about in the next proclamation, but I do want to mention how this purchase was funded. This was a one-time appropriation from the governor for legacy land acquisitions to the Heritage Conservation Trust Fund. And additional expenses were covered by our Wetlands Fund and also a generous grant from the National Wild Turkey Federation. So we appreciate their partnership. And with that, the agency recommends passage of Proclamation 2601 establishing the Hatchie River Wildlife Management Area.
Thank you, Patrick. First, I'll entertain questions from the Wildlife Committee. Is there anybody on the Wildlife Committee that has any questions or comments? Any comments from the full commission? I'll now call a vote. All those on the Wildlife Committee in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Proclamation passes. Wildlife Committee.
Second, we have Proclamation 2602, hunting seasons and bag limits on the Hatchie River WMA. The agency recommends statewide hunting and trapping seasons with one caveat, and that being spring turkey season. We recommend it to be consistent with other region non-quota WMAs and open the first 4 weeks of statewide. Also, the young sportsman hunt would follow statewide seasons and limited to 1 male turkey per hunter. So once you harvest that 1 bird, you need to go to another property and close to fall seasons. On waterfowl hunting, it's from temporary blinds only. You must remove your blinds, boats, blind materials, and decoys each day. With that, the agency recommends passage of Proclamation 2602, hunting seasons and bag limits on the Hatchie River WMA.
Patrick, do you mind going back a slide so the commissioners can see those seasons again? Do I have any questions from the Wildlife Committee? Any questions from the full commission? All right, for Wildlife Committee, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Proclamation is recommended to the full commission tomorrow. Chairman Devaney has asked that we take about a 15-minute break. Why don't we reconvene at, what, 2:40? All right, thank you. All right, continuing on with the Wildlife Committee, we've got a preview of amendment to the chronic wasting disease rule. I call Chief of Wildlife and Forestry, Joe Benedict, to the podium. Thank you, Joe.
Good afternoon again, Commissioners. Apologize if I end up coughing. I have the Christmas cold that was going around, so it's good to be with you again. Initially, I was here to talk about a commission request from the last meeting in December. We had a lively discussion about chronic wasting disease regarding baiting, and you all passed a rule there, of course, that will go on to GovOps Committee. This morning, or this afternoon, instead of talking about buffer counties to the CWD management zone first, well, I'd like to talk about them last. We do have some new CWD positive counties that we wanted to share initially, which will go into the buffer county discussion. So we'll share those. And then because of these recommendations, because of these positive counties, we have some recommendations for this rule, which is 1660-01-34. So this is sort of the old CWD management rule that we've had in place since 2018, I believe. So again, we'll move to the buffer county discussion till the end. So a few reminders for us all as we think about chronic wasting disease. Deer season is over for the adults. We've got the youth season coming up Saturday and Sunday, so we'll get some more samples, and we also have samples at the lab from the regular deer season. So we don't have all the samples in yet. We'll fully evaluate this year's data in the coming weeks as those final results come in. Another piece to just remind us about is there's deer management, which is, hunters hunting, quota hunts and bag limits and those kind of things. With chronic wasting disease, disease management is very different, right? And we know from the agricultural world, disease management is, eradicate and wipe things out. But for those of us in wildlife where we have wild critters, we can't eradicate and wipe things out and start a new chicken flock, for example. We have to engage hunters. Hunters are, the biggest stakeholder we have. Hunters and fishermen are the biggest stakeholders we have in the agency. And a key thing is, they've been essential partners in conservation forever, also in chronic wasting disease since the beginning. A couple things to note: they have access to property, right? So the agency has, we've got a lot of WMAs and thousands of acres of land, but there's way more acres of land that are private. And so when we think about managing wildlife population or animals, access to property is kind of a key thing, and we do not go onto property without permission. Again, hunters have access to the property. Hunters also choose if they want to hunt or not. Right, so there's a lot of things that compete for all of our time. I know I hunt fewer days than I ever have, the older I get, and the more work the director puts on us. Wink, wink. But they also have a choice to harvest or not. Right, so how many of us have been out there on a cold, windy day, and we have a Christmas party to go to, and there's a nice deer in front of us, and you're like, I think I'm just going to pass on that tonight. Right. So besides that sort of simple analogy, there's a lot of reasons folks may not choose to harvest a deer, and some of the chronic wasting disease. The impacts of that disease are part of their choice to not just hunt but also harvest deer. There's also not a single right answer here, right? We as humans and as scientists, we want to find the best answer, the right answer with scientific data to back it up and make that choice, and it's easy. Chronic wasting disease, deer management, it's not easy, and so there's nothing right here. There's nothing right or wrong really today. So again, there's more samples that will come out as the days go through here, as we get results from the lab from this past deer season. This recommended approach that we have that I'll share with you today, which is a couple of recommendations for this rule, that approach will be evergreen. And so if we get another positive county in the next, with data from this year that we don't have as a result yet, the approaches that we provide, if the commission agrees with those and makes this rule change, that will help us moving forward to not have to worry about every time we get a new positive county. So we know CW is going to grow and continue to spread a little bit. We're hopeful it stays at a slow rate. But again, we think now that is a good time to kind of make some changes at this point. So this slide up here on the green, sorry you can't see the green as well here in the dark room, but the left side, you guys have all seen the chronic wasting disease management zone. It's in the green there. It's west of the Tennessee River. It also includes Lewis and Wayne County. You all, commissioners, you all received from me a couple of different emails in the last several weeks of Dixon County and Williamson County, and then just this week we discovered a positive in in Humphreys County there. So Humphreys County now touches the CW management zone, and then Dixon, and then Williamson. So these are all positive counties. Now they have one positive animal. So very different than Southwest Tennessee counties. So again, there's 3 new positive counties there in that kind of burnt orange color. We will not change anything for the youth seasons, which are coming up day after tomorrow and Sunday. Because these counties are contiguous, they would automatically become part of the chronic waste and disease management plan zone, and we just don't want to have folks, with a 1-day notice, have to figure out how to transport animals to their processor, to their butcher, and worry about all of that for the kids. So the changes that would come about with these positive counties, we're going to not worry about that until after the youth season. So folks hunting this weekend in those 3 counties can pretend they aren't positive at this point. So again, going back to the management zone regulations there in 1660-01-34, in the zone there's no feeding. There are some exceptions. You can feed 100 feet from the house, normal agricultural feed, etc. The carcass transportation restrictions are throughout the green areas. You can move carcasses within the green area, but you can't take them out unless they're boned out, meat, clean skulls, et cetera, et cetera. So, and then finally, the thing in that rule is that contiguous positive counties are automatically added to the zone. This rule was done in 2023. We were having, counties become positive every year. And so that's the reason that previous commissioners and agency recommendations put that into the rule. Again, non-contiguous counties in this current rule that was established in 2023, the agency would basically decide something and bring it to you guys as a recommendation. So until earlier this week, when we had Williamson and Dixon County, this is where we would have been, a non-contiguous county. And we would have decided, made some recommendations and brought them to you. So when we think about chronic waste and disease, again, hunters have a choice to hunt that day and harvest deer in areas with very low CWD prevalence, and especially these positive counties, and there's very low presence. We need to keep folks hunting, right? 1 deer out of the hundreds of deer that we've tested in those counties is positive. So we know that CWD is very sparse there. We do need more samples in those areas, particularly on those properties, to see what the prevalence is. But we want to keep folks hunting outside because, again, the agency can't go in there and harvest deer. We can't reduce deer. We need hunters to do that. And so we want to ensure that folks can get to the processors. I have a map here. I think it's right here. These pink dots, again, I apologize for the darkness of this room. Those dots on there are processors that we know. It may not be all of them, but those are the primary processors. And you'll see there's a dot between Dixon and Williamson County there. There's a dot in Davidson County. There's places where folks within these green counties would not be able to go and take their deer to be processed. And so the agency spent a lot of time this week and in the last couple of weeks thinking through this. But again, what we want to share with you today is some simplifications, if you will, for rules to make it easier for folks to harvest deer in these new counties that have 1 detection and still get to their processors, and also still allow for the proper disposal of these animals, which of course have the prions in them. So at a high level, there's 3 things that I want to share as agency recommendations for this rule. The first one is to add a disposal requirement for deer carcasses. Now this would be statewide, and essentially we looked at Missouri, Georgia, some other states that either have recently changed their CWD management approach, or they're new states. Georgia's very new, a couple of years. And they're thinking again about this idea that we need to keep hunters hunting, and we want animals to be able to get to processors, and we want those carcasses disposed of in a proper way. So we'll talk through that here in a minute about this new disposal requirement. We'll ask you to basically add to this rule. The second piece there is something I think the commission was very interested in December, is to prohibit feeding in CWD positive counties. There's a lot of discussion about what, we're going to not allow baiting, but they can still feed there. So we think this aligns with the commission's wishes from last month, and it's a great approach to managing not just the disease, but also deer. And then finally, an adjustment to the CWD management zone. And I'll talk through that here in just a minute. Again, reminder that you all prohibited baiting in CWD positive counties. That was last month. That will go to the GovOps committee here in the next few months, and hopefully that will pass as well. So the first recommendation there would be to add a new section. It's section .04 about carcass disposal. And again, we want to provide for consistent disposal of carcasses across the state with best management practices. This recommendation also would prohibit us or exclude us from needing to provide further transportation restrictions outside of the CW management zone. And so I'll go through this really quickly and just kind of come back to that point. Statewide disposal of cervid or deer carcasses, parts, and products. And the language we have drafted, again, it came from Missouri. We tweaked it a little bit, but all parts of a deer carcass that are not kept or not provided to a taxidermist, processor, or tanner must be disposed of through a normal waste stream, as you would for household waste, or left on the property where the deer was harvested. So for instance, if I harvest a deer in a different county, and I gut the deer and I bring it to my house a couple counties away, and I butcher the deer myself, I have a pile of waste. I have bones, I have things that I need to dispose of. Instead of putting them out behind my house in the field, which I might be doing for years, we want folks to put them in their regular trash and go to the landfill, or leave them on the property they were harvested. Again, we're trying to make it easy for folks to harvest animals and dispose of them properly without creating county-specific transportation regulations that would prohibit them from going to a processor. And processors, they have their own waste stream, tanners, all those things, they have their waste stream already set. So this is our first recommendation to add this new section. Again, this would be statewide, a statewide regulation. The second piece, again, this is what we talked about in December over the feeding concerns. We don't want to concentrate deer unnaturally, particularly in CW positive counties. And so this language here is the exact same language, except the first, several words there, that's already in this rule. So in the rule, it says within the CW management zone, and it lists this prohibition. And here what we say is we're adding this .05 section, and we're saying within a CW positive county, you can't feed deer, with these few exceptions here. Again, food placed within 100 feet of a residence, feed placed in a manner to reasonably exclude access by deer, as part of a wild hog management effort authorized by the agency. When folks have a hog exemption, they can bait in certain instances, and then some normal agricultural practices there. So again, agency feels like this will be favorable to you all as a great management tool there. And then finally, getting onto the final recommendation we have is to adjust the CW management zone. And so if you look at the slide, you see the 3 new positive counties there in orange, and you'll notice down at the bottom, Wayne and Lewis County, we've changed them from green to orange, to explain what we want to do here. The recommendation is to pull those counties out of the CW management zone. There's only one positive animal in each of those 2 counties, and really all those 5 counties now. So the recommendation would be to remove Wayne and Lewis County from the management zone, remove the language that says the management zone grows automatically when contiguous counties are become positive. All the other existing regulations would remain in the CW management zone, and that zone also would have this new statewide disposal requirement. So it would be a shrinking of the CW management zone, and actually this was not intentional, but it aligns with Deer Management Unit 1. And again, as we move forward and we find positive animals, one positive animal in a county, we need to keep folks hunting there. We need additional samples that will reduce, the deer harvest or the deer population, or keep it in check a little bit. And we want those folks to be able to go to a processor. We've done some surveys after we found chronic wasting disease, and 60 or more % of the folks that were surveyed use a processor. And I have this number 86% in my head, but I forgot to look that up, so I apologize. But many of our hunters, rely on processors, so we need, that's a limiting factor for them. And so we wanted to bring these changes to you to allow for those folks in those areas with one positive to keep hunting. I think I've said these points here. So again, these counties have one positive deer. It's difficult to move deer around. We don't want complex restrictions because that impacts harvest. And again, these new disposal regulations, which I mentioned as the first recommendation, hopefully would be in place in these areas. So I believe this is my final slide here on this piece. So specifically for those CWD positive counties that are outside the management zone, the regulations there would include no baiting. Again, this is an action the commission took in December. The two proposals we have here today are to not allow feeding there, and then have the new disposal requirements in those counties. So again, when we think about this from a high level, folks that are maybe just tuning in or will start to tune in over the summer or early fall next year, when they look to see, oh, my counties are positive, what is that going to change for me for hunting? They really have very little change except this disposal requirement. So again, idea is to keep folks hunting, keep deer being harvested, so we can keep testing them and keep folks out there hunting. The final slide I have here is just kind of a map. This, I think, was a specific request of the commission or the chair last meeting to bring this to you. We have the same map there. We have the red counties, orange counties that are positive. We have the green CWD management zone, and then in blue we have buffer counties. So the buffer counties, there's 11 of them. They're in blue. These do not have chronic wasting disease detected there yet. And so the question before the commission is for what's the language the commission desires for us to include in the rule. And I guess I do have this kind of a discussion point slide maybe to help us go through the discussion here. The agency, General Counsel Grimes, will draft a rule, and it'll be a red line rule, so the changes that you all would like to see, he'll file that with the Secretary of State, and then you all would have a meeting to vote on that in March, so 52 days later. So the agency needs to know what the commission's recommendations are to put in that draft rule. The final vote on the rule would not take place until the rule hearing, which will be in March. So again, the purpose of these pieces today is to get, I guess consensus might be the word. I'll look to General Counsel Grimes to help here. What the commission feels as a whole body for the agency to put in that draft rule, which will be submitted to the AG's office. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Joe. Quite a complex topic and situation. I want to remind the members of the Wildlife Committee that what we will be voting on today is an action to recommend this proclamation preview to the full commission. We are not voting to adopt this proclamation at this point. It's just to recommend the preview to the full commission. So with that said, do I have any Wildlife Committee members that would like to comment or have a question for Joe? Commissioner Box.
How many positives in Lake County?
I don't know. 0. So there's no positive counties. I think we have 3 counties with no positives yet.
And yet we're treating it as part of the zone?
Yes, sir. Some of the thought behind that, when we look at the map of the green, the CWD management zone, that rule has been in place for a number of years, and the hunters and the processors have moved into that those regulations. When we created the management zone, it allowed folks to move deer back and forth, and it allowed them to go to their processors already. And so that was the thinking. We didn't want to start changing all these different zones because the folks have kind of gotten into what their regulations are in those areas west of the Tennessee River.
And it's not just Lake, there's several counties in that zone that have no detections yet, correct?
I believe it's 3 that have no detections.
Benton, I can't recall.
I think maybe it's Lake and Obion in Benton County.
And so we're going to allow feeding in counties where we have a positive and restricted in counties we don't?
No, so the recommendation here, the second one is to prohibit feeding in CWD positive counties. So we'd like to take care of that. After the discussion in December, this is the agency's recommendation that we prohibit baiting anywhere that's positive.
Commissioner McCarty.
Joe, do we have any data on the differences of spread of CWD due to carcass carcasses versus the other methods of deer contact? Or?
Dr. Grove is here, Mark McBride is here, they have other, they could add to this if they need to, but we really don't know how CWD spreads. I mean, we know how it can spread, deer-to-deer contact, carcass movement, et cetera. We have no way to know, for instance, what happened in Williamson County or Dixon County or Humphreys County. We have no way to determine that.
I'm looking more from just big picture. One of our biggest issues is the transportation rule and the complications because of it, and what level do we think CWD transfers due to carcasses versus other natural transfer?
I'll let Mark, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, Assistant Chief Mark McBride over Game Species.
I think to add a little context there, Commissioner, one of the reasons transport regulations have often been kind of one of the first thing that state agencies do is it's really the only thing that the agency can control with CWD, right? And we know carcasses do spread it. You know, there's conjecture that vultures will predate a carcass and fly around with it and spread CWD. We don't know. No one's proved that. But at the end of the day, there's very few control mechanisms that agencies actually have on the spread of disease, and carcass transport is one of them. So states through time have kind of been like, we can't really control anything, but this is one aspect where we might be able to. But as Joe mentioned in his presentation, those same states through time have started to recognize, you know, this is creating quite a burden for some hunters, certainly for processors and taxidermists and their businesses, and we recognize that. So a lot of them are shifting to this carcass disposal route to ease that burden on hunters.
Commissioner Moody.
So talking about the carcass disposal and the movement to dispose of it in, like with household trash, basically in a trash bag. What's going to be the feedback from the county landfills? Are they going to be at a point that they don't accept it? I mean, I know personally our county landfill has a problem accepting kitty litter. So, you know, yeah, what are we looking at there? Have we put any research into that?
I think a lot of folks that butcher their own deer already do this, depending on where you live. If you don't live in the county, in the country, I've got numerous friends that they do this. I don't know that we could speak to other landfills and what they've done with it. You know, if they're an approved landfill for, I'm losing track of here what I'm trying to say. A lined landfill, I'm sorry, a lined landfill is allowed to take this material. So we've been through some of that in the past. Commissioners, you're aware of that.
Any other members of the Wildlife Committee? Yes, sir. Commissioner Box.
All right, let's go. I'm slow, so work with me. So on 3, up there, if we take Lake, Benton, and O'Bine, and they're not automatically added based on that, are we going to keep them in the zone?
Yes, sir. We're going to keep those in the zone. So if I was unclear, we would only, the agency recommendation is to remove Wayne and Lewis County from the zone. The rest of the zone would stay. All of its regulations would stay. Wayne and Lewis, Humphreys, Williamson, and Dixon now would fall into these other things. No feeding, no baiting that you've taken care of, and then this disposal method.
And we're keeping the Lake, O'Bine, and Benton in because they are beside other positive counties, but we're not doing that in Middle. I don't understand.
The CWD management zone's been in place for a long time, right? And hunters have gotten used to how they move deer and how they operate there. CWD in West Tennessee, obviously that you know this it's in your sort of backyard. There's a lot more CWD diseased deer there on the landscape. Prevalences are much higher in those surrounding counties than they are in Williamson County, Lewis County, those counties that are far east. So If we look at the heat map, and I didn't put this up here, I can bring it tomorrow if folks want, but the heat map is the farther away you go, the fewer positive animals you have. But west of the river, we have more than east of the river, if that makes sense. Would it be helpful to have the heat map tomorrow? Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Joe. I would just like to explain to the general public how serious this matter is. The ultimate game with CWD is low deer density, low buck age structure. It's not up for debate anymore. It's a fact. It's happening in Fayette and Hardeman County. It's happening in northwest Arkansas. We don't have a cure for this disease. We're trying to do the best we can to manage its spread, but obviously what you've seen it popping up in Williamson County, and I've heard 3 miles per year naturally. Well, apparently it's hitching a ride in back of somebody's pickup truck somehow. So this is a very serious situation, and one of the things I want to point out is that the #1 revenue stream for this agency is deer hunt licenses. And if you get enough people that hunt that don't want to hunt anymore because they can't kill an older age buck or they can't see a deer, it becomes a revenue problem for this agency. And I can assure you this commission and this agency and its executive team are working very hard to do the best we can to address these generational issues for this state. So I just want to commend you for the work you've done. Seems like every time CWD comes up, it's a different discussion, a different topic, a different nuance. So do I have any comments from the remainder of the commission related to this proclamation? Commissioner Butt.
I'm of the same persuasion of Commissioner Moody, because Murray County has a restriction on their collection centers of no animal waste. And I don't know if you've thought through that recommendation, but not every county has a landfill. Matter of fact, South Central Development District counties, which are 13, have contracted with an entity from Hohenwald that hauls all the animal carcasses to Murfreesboro to the landfill. And so that would be violating restrictions from Murray County's collection centers, all of them, to put animal waste in those bags, in those containers. So I'm hesitant to allow that recommendation to stand across the state if that's the case of other counties. So I think I would encourage the agency to reconsider that possibility in light of at least restrictions in Murray County that say you can't dump animal carcasses in those garbage containers.
Commissioner Blue.
Fayette and Hardeman down here have the highest prevalence rates of the entire West, Zone 1 and Zone 2. This is Zone 1 and 2. So those two counties have the highest prevalence rate, right?
Correct.
By some way higher.
In most cases, yes.
Yeah. So
Shelby County is also high.
This county, Fayette and Hardeman got the prevalence rate of what? 25 to 30%?
Around there.
Henry County appears to have the prevalence rate of what?
Small.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know these off the top of my head.
Lake County, there's none. O'Brien County, none. Wheatley County, 2. The only really 2 counties we've got with high prevalence rates, I'm I'm not saying the word right, prevalence rates are Fayette Hardeman. But you can see the impact that those two counties are having on their deer population. The 8 years prior to CWD, they killed 25,000 more deer than the last 8 years. It's a 25,000 harvest reduction in the last 8 years compared to the prior years of CWD. In those two counties, just in those two counties. So I think our worst case scenario is in Fayette Hardeman, and people are seeing that and understanding that now in those two counties, because those two are what some of these other counties will be in, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road. You know, Hickman and Williamson may have the same percentage that they have now. Of course, the prevalence rate is not actually the infection rate. That's just what we know, what we've tested, and what we've found to be infected in those counties. So it's going to spread, and obviously, as we've been getting the emails, it's popping up all over West and Middle Tennessee. So if we're wanting to slow this, we're not going to be able to stop it. We're wanting to slow it. Why would we not do something simple like Zone 1, Zone 2, right here over? We've already got the counties established. We've already got maps on them in our hunter guide. Zone 1 and Zone 2 are the CWD management zone. You can't feed, you can't bait in Zone 1 or Zone 2. Transportation guidelines are the same. You can transport a deer to your taxidermist, you can transport it to your house to process it, or you can take it to a professional processor in Zone 1 or Zone 2. That would be really simple. Really simple. The hunters they can take the deer where they want, Zone 1, Zone 2. And the disposal requirements, keep those as you want, as you said. And Henry County landfills will be the same with the issues of the deer carcass. So I don't know about that working, but why would we not do something that simple and then have all these counties that are already being included in it as well? If we're going to do it for Lake, we're going to do it for O'Brien, we're doing it for Henry, it's got 2 deer, we're doing it for, I don't know, the only 2 major counties we got are these 2 down here, and a little bit of Shelby. But it's coming this way. Why would we not just draw a line and cut it off from there? That's my question.
Commissioner Blue, thank you for that.
Let me interrupt, Joe, I'm sorry. Commissioner Blue, are you saying that you would be able to take a deer from Zone 1 into Zone 2 for processing, for instance, from Fayette to Lincoln County, or just within Zone 1 and within Zone 2?
I would keep it simple. I would say that you could carry, and I would say that's up for debate. You could carry, if you killed a deer in Zone 1, you can carry it anywhere in Zone 1. Or if you killed a deer, but there again, I mean, if you kill a deer in Humphreys, does that mean you can't carry it to Benton? If you kill a deer in Madison, I mean, I would say a deer, if you kill a deer in Zone 1 or Zone 2, you can carry it anywhere you want, in Zone 1 or Zone 2.
Okay, thank you.
Is what I would say.
Okay.
Your transportation guidelines are from here to here. Basically. Carry deer anywhere you want within that. I think, now I haven't found any, I haven't been able to find any studies on it, but on the way transportation spreads it versus the way we know how it spreads, you know. But I think there's a lower chance. I would think that there's a lower chance. And it's a tougher job for the enforcement officers to enforce these transportation guidelines. Nobody's going to know. I kill a deer in Henry County and take it to Wilson County and put it up those bones away. And you're not going to know. I mean, it's a tough case to make. Tough case to make. So I think the rate is really slow and lower in a lot of counties. And I think the thing that we need to remember is this is not going to affect us right now or next year, but in 10 years or 15 years down the road. But that's what Fayette, Hardeman, and Shelby are seeing now. They're seeing the effects of it, and they're at 25-30% rate. Where Henry County is at 1%. But in 10 years, we could be there.
So Commissioner Blue, would you like for Joe to consider this for his presentation tomorrow?
Yes, sir, I would.
Okay.
Or if it's not a good idea, why would we not do that? And that's as simple as you can get it right there.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could respond to that.
Absolutely.
So the agency considered that kind of idea. And again, when you think about Fayette and Hardeman County, and Shelby County, and I think Madison, there's other areas that have a high prevalence. It's not 25%, but you get to 4 and 5%. What we don't want is to take deer from Fayette Hardeman County and bring them all the way to Wilson County or Williamson County. So that's why we said let's leave the CWD management zone like it is. It's basically west of the river. There is a bit of a barrier by the river, right? Not complete, obviously, but.
Oh,
10%.
Well, I hadn't had one last 15 minutes, my bad. But next month I may ask for a portable mic or maybe one of those headsets. But if scratch Shelby, Fayette, and Hardeman, what's the next county with the next highest rate? It's probably 3 or 4%, I would say, right? Or what is it, Doc? Roughly 5? Okay.
This is Dr. Dan Grove. He's our CWD coordinator. Dr. Grove, did I pronounce that correctly?
Well, Jeremy Dennis is the CWD coordinator. I'm,
You're the PhD of CWD.
Yes. So for the prevalences, we haven't calculated about this year. My guess is they're going to be higher. We wait till the end of the season to do the official calculations, but our ranges last year were anywhere, with Fayette and Hardeman being the highest, anywhere from 25 to 30%, depending on which county you're looking at. Roughly 7 to 10% for Shelby County, but then the next were between 4 and 6%, and I can't remember off the top of my head what the counties are, but I would anticipate that to actually change this year.
Sure. Okay. What? Let me ask you this, Doc. Doing what I was saying, and I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm not trying to be hard. I'm wanting my grandkids to kill deer. I want y'all's I want this to spread as slow as we can possibly do. And why would we not want to draw a line right there and shut it down? And if we're worried about deer coming out of them 3 counties, box them in. There's all kind of processors in those 3 counties.
Commissioner Blue,
Shelby, Fayette, and all Hardeman, they all got processors.
Well, if I could respond, part of the rationale that we shared, and maybe it was just one statement in there, the folks in the CWD management zone are used to these regulations now. They have been for some time. And so what they're doing and killing animals, deciding to hunt, deciding to harvest animals, and then taking them to the processors, we don't feel like there's a big issue with there. And so what we wanted our concern now is with these new areas, right? The folks in these 5 red counties now, or orange counties,
right?
We don't want them to have the same sort of trouble that we had in West Tennessee in those first number of years as we evolve the transportation issue. And so what we're saying is, moving forward, a CWD positive county, no feeding, no baiting, and just make sure we dispose of our animals in the right way so they're not on the landscape, right? It's a simple approach. It's evergreen. So anytime a new county becomes positive, the regulations they're simple, they're the same, and it's best management practices. The transportation issue in West Tennessee, we would be loosening up what we have now. If you allowed animals from Fayette and Hardeman County to go outside of the current CWD management zone, the chance of spreading it, we don't know how small it would be. You're increasing the idea that deer could be moved from Fayette and Hardeman County or adjacent to there, Madison County, if it's 5%. You could be allowing people to bring deer farther into East Tennessee than they are now. So we, as an agency, we don't want to relax those regulations. Our thoughts here are moving forward with these single positive counties.
But my idea was to keep it simple. That was what you were promoting, is to keep it simple. There's nothing no more simpler than that right there. And I mean, y'all been sending emails out. We're getting new positive counties every week now. So I mean, do you not think any of these other counties? Do you not think it'll spread west? Wilson, Robertson. Do you not think we'll have a case in there?
It will be. It will be next year. Will it be 10
Right.
years? We have no idea. We have no idea at the time.
But that's what I'm saying. I just don't understand why we don't cut it off and include all that in there. And yeah, we are loosening the restrictions on transportation, but that's easy. That's comfort. You're allowing the hunter to take the deer where he wants to. But we're tightening down on the feeding guidelines by double or triple. And then we're creating a huge buffer zone at the same time, I don't understand why we wouldn't do that. It's simple. It's got a line, zone 1, zone 2. We've got counties within the CWB management zone that don't even have positives, just like Commissioner Bach said. But we're not going to include the ones east of the river. Why don't we include them all? Boom, wrap it up.
So Commissioner Blue, maybe I'll just try to understand the fullness of what you're suggesting here. So when we think about Deer Management Unit 2, which is those red and orange and blue counties and a few more, you're suggesting that we not allow feeding or baiting in that entire area. Is that right?
Sir. Zone 1, zone 2.
Right. Well,
no, I'm not talking about any, I'm saying
zone 1 is already taken care of.
Yeah, everything.
Right. So
everything west. Everything west is right there. Everything. No feeding, no baiting. And, a lot of this, and these officers will tell you back here, I mean, it's tough to make the cases that they make now. And go to any Walmart, Tractor Supply, and see what type of revenue they've brought in on corn, baiting supplies. I mean, it's tough. We're only keeping the honest people honest half the time. But if we're worried about the spread, I don't know why we wouldn't want to be doing something as conservative as this and locking it down. That's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just I think what I'll do for tomorrow is we'll fill in with a blue color the remaining counties in Deer Management Unit 2 to get to what Commissioner Blue's request was.
Joe, I think that sounds...
Just for discussion purposes.
Certainly. I think that sounds reasonable. Now, Commissioner Blue, what I'm hearing is we don't want to take a deer out of Fayette County and put it in Lincoln County processor, and I agree with that. So I think if you color the rest of the Region 2 counties in, and you've got the CWD zone, Zone 1, transport regs, and then you've got the baiting, feeding in Zone 2, that's kind of where we're headed with this. That's what I'm feeling. So
what would be the best idea for transportation guidelines? If you kill a deer in Zone 1, it has to stay in Zone 1. If you kill a deer in Zone 2, it has to stay in Zone 2? Or what?
I think with all due respect, Commissioner Blue, maybe give Joe and the staff time to think about that, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. Does that seem logical?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good with that.
Chairman, I think we've thought about it. We've presented it. I would say if we'll make the maps that Commissioner Blue's requesting, and then the vote will be up to you all.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Butt.
So, for 2 years, we've had restrictions on transporting deer killed in Wayne County over into Lawrence County because it's contiguous with CWD zone. Clarify how that's going to change for me now, because I'm going to get that question. So, if you don't mind, what's going to be the situation now transporting a deer killed in Wayne County into Lawrence County?
They'll be allowed to do that. If all 3 recommendations pass, or if the disposal one passes, then they will be able to do that.
So the restriction that's been in place for the last several years is going to be removed. Is that what you're saying?
For that county.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Jones.
So I'm going to ask a question as a new commissioner, even though I've been associated since we first found CWD, and I missed a couple of years. But so we've been living with CWD for 8 years now, I guess. Is that correct? First case was 8 years ago. Have we compiled enough data now that you could prepare kind of an analysis on how CWD has grown in the counties that we first found it and how it's grown over the years? Just kind of, is there any way that you could present that in a way that would give us some, I mean, we're kind of shooting from the hip a lot of times. We get emails about counties getting positives, but if we could see that in kind of a graphical or some other kind of presentation where we could actually see how CWD has grown over the years and what directions it's grown in. Is there any way that we could do that?
We have all those annual data. One of the things about chronic wasting disease and other wildlife diseases is you know, if we had a time series of maps, for instance, the historical maps wouldn't be able to allow us to predict the future, right? If that's where you're thinking about going.
Well, I mean, you know, we went through this whole thing about predictive modeling years ago, and being able to put that data in and using that data to predict how CWD would grow and what different controls we could put in to, you know, hopefully control that, you know, that growth and expansion and everything. But I just wondered if we had enough data at this point where we could say, okay, it's started right here, and a year later it grew to this zone, and it grew to this zone, and I mean, just, you know, over the last 8 years, it's gone from here to here to here to here to here. Just to give us, you know, kind of a picture of what's going on since we've discovered it.
Maybe the easiest way to show that sort of graphically would be the picture of the heat map of the, you know, at the end of the season, we put a map together with all the positives that we found, and so we could show that, we could provide those to you for each year
chronologically,
and you could, you know, flip through it like the old cartoons, right? Flip through it, see how it changed. Mr. Chairman, if it's okay with you, I'd like to ask Dr. Grove to maybe talk about the 5% prevalence point. So, you know, we found CWD in 1 or 2 animals. You know, we ask hunters in those areas to continue harvesting deer, see if there's more chronic wasting disease there, or if it's just kind of an anomaly or a single animal. But at some point when we hit 5%, Dan will go through this in greater detail, but it hits a point where it's not 40%, but it hits 5%, I believe, and then you've kind of lost it. So we're talking about, you know, 4%, 5%, 6%, counties with a couple of positives, but there's I don't know what you call it, the growth factor of the disease, where because there's so many animals on the landscape, there's so much disease in the environment, once you hit that percentage, like, it doesn't go at the same rate. So maybe, Dr. Grove, if you could talk about the 5% number that I'm thinking about.
Yeah, well, and before I want to address what Commissioner Jones was asking for. If for those of you who may or may not have been paying attention 8 years ago, one of the things we said, because we found 185 positives our first year. So clearly the disease had been there for longer than, it wasn't just that year, it just didn't all of a sudden pop up. And so what we'd always said, and this is, if you look at the real progression of time is probably the last 3 years worth of data, because it took us about 5 years to actually figure out where the true outskirts of the disease were. So if you look at those first 5 years, it looks like, oh my gosh, it's expanding rapidly. And that's because if you look at the way we did our surveillance, when we first did our surveillance, we were focusing hard on the counties bordering Mississippi because they had just found it. And then when we found it at that rate, then we expanded. So each year we expanded, and each year we were finding new positives in new counties. So we can put together the time progression like you were asking, but you have to put it in the context of realizing that it took about 5 years to figure out where the true outskirts were. And so that's not the true probably growth rate that you would actually be seeing at this point in time moving forward. If you expand from Fayette and Hardeman out, because those positives were more than likely already there. It took us 5 years to figure out how far out they went, if that makes any sense. But relative to what Joe's talking about, if you look at wildlife disease in general, if you have a 1% rate of disease in your population of any disease, and we're not going to be talking about CWD with this, if you look at 1%, that's considered high for any wildlife disease. Like if we're talking like rabies in East Tennessee, we get above 0.1%, and that's considered a high prevalence rate. So when we're talking about CWD and you're talking about prevalences, you're talking about what the public perceives as when they can finally start to actually recognize that there's an issue in the population of animals. And because there are so many deer on the landscape, you've got to have a higher prevalence of disease before people are going to start recognizing the impacts of that disease. So that's why in Fayette and Hardeman County, where you have such high prevalences, it's because all across all age structures, you're already starting to see those changes. We're used to things like with hemorrhagic disease. We just had an outbreak this year of hemorrhagic disease in Middle Tennessee. People see a lot of dead animals on the landscape, right? And you will see the impacts that immediate season while you're out hunting, because a lot of those animals died that you were watching on your camera from August, but they die in September and October. And so you're going to see the impact of that disease because it takes out a lot of animals all at once. And so you'll have a high prevalence of disease at that point in time in that given population. The CWD, it takes a while to get to that. But what we've seen across other states, if we extrapolate from there, at roughly 5% is when you've already started to impact your populations. It's just not perceived in the public eye as being impacted until you get to that point where it's like, I just don't see any big bucks anymore. And so you start seeing like between 5 and 10% that drastic shift in the age structure of the animals on the landscape. And then by the time you're at, that 25 to 30%, you're just not seeing the numbers of deer. So it's relative. Like if you wait until 5%, before you're like, that's not that high. That is actually really high. That's already past the point of you being able to do something. Because one of the other things, and it's talked about in the community, there's not necessarily scientific data to support this side of it, but right around 5% is probably when you're starting to see environmental impacts in terms of there's enough prions in the environment to where that's becoming an additive factor to the direct contact transmission cycles. Now, is that exact? It's just kind of what we've seen over the years is that's whenever you start to see the exponential growth curve. So something has to be changing in the contact rates, and it most likely is the environmental side of it. And that's right around 5%. Between 5 and 10% is whenever you go from like a slow growth curve to it all of a sudden just shooting up. And so what we've actually seen in Fayette and Hardeman over the last 8 years is it's gone from a 1 to 2% prevalence increase each year to where we're at between 3 and 5% increase. And pretty soon it'll probably be anywhere from 5 to 10% if you get to a certain point. At a certain point, you still, like during that process, you've got enough animals that aren't sick on the landscape that are able to make up for the animals that are dying. But usually it's around between 30 and 40%, or even a little bit higher depending on how many deer are on the landscape, where that extra number of animals, and Mark showed this in his presentation in December, where basically you get to a point where the number of animals being added doesn't overcome the number of animals that are being lost between disease and all the hunting and other mechanisms that animals are lost from the landscape. And so that when we're talking about prevalences, anything above 1% is where you're starting to actually, we may not see it as, just out there hunting, but that is when the populations are starting to potentially be negatively impacted. So, is that?
Thank you, Dr. Grove. Commissioner McCarty.
I don't know if I want to open the can of worms back up to Monty's question earlier about the west and the middle zone, but looking at some of the restrictions, I think one of the goals that the commission went to before I got on was trying to make things as simple as possible. And for this transportation issue, would it be simple just to say that West Tennessee can't bring deer to Middle Tennessee for the near foreseeable future?
And that's really what we have, Commissioner. The CWD management zone, you can't bring any of the parts out that are considered high risk, because that's what we have, yes.
Thank you.
Joe, we had some discussion in December, Chattanooga, about the 2-map problem, where we had a transport map and a no baiting map. Can you go back to these maps and make sure and explain how the hunters, that we've simplified it as much as we can for them?
Yes, sir. So again, if our recommendations are passed by you all in the GovOps committee, this would be one of the sort of maps we'd have. We'd have the green CWD management zone, which would just be basically west of the river, including all of Hardin County. And those regulations would essentially remain unchanged. So hunters there would not have a change. Hunters in the east counties, east of there, they would just have to know if their county was positive or not. And that would only pertain to baiting and feeding. So if you want to bait, you have to know if you're positive county. And this could all be done in the hunting guide pretty easily. Another piece I think that one of the commissioners mentioned is we could announce new positive counties only once a year, in the summer. So never mind, we couldn't do that. Feeding and baiting would go into effect automatically. So there might be some changes in the middle of a hunting season for baiting and feeding, but that would be the only change. There wouldn't have to be several maps. It could be simply a list of counties that were positive.
Thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner Jones.
So I had one follow-up question, and that was good data, Dr. Groves. Thank you for sharing that with us. So we see a map of Tennessee, and I know that when CWD first started popping up, it was kind of concentrated in that corner of the state, but now we're starting to see other states around us pop up. Is that something we're taking into consideration? I mean, I know it's getting dangerously close to my part of the state, and the elk herd up in that area and in some of those counties. Is that something that we're taking into consideration as well?
Yes, sir. We're in contact with all the surrounding states and really all the southeast deer folks and disease folks. Dr. Grove's in contact across the nation with folks. And so those are part of our surveillance probabilities. If a county has a positive nearby, we sample there more to do early detection.
Any other comments from the commission? Tori, would you explain what we're doing and I guess the path forward?
So, Commissioners, this is obviously it's a little bit out of the ordinary. Most of our rules come directly to the full commission for a vote. This was actually this whole topic was actually asked for by Commissioner Ballou last month, so that's why we kind of presented this information in this committee. This is still a preview because this is not a formal public hearing at this point. And I think that's probably speak for Chief Benedict that we're just trying to ascertain direction the commission wants to go in this matter, because obviously it's the effect. So hope that helps everybody understand kind of where we're at.
So after we vote tomorrow, it goes to rulemaking hearing. Can you explain that?
Sure. If it's referred out of the committee today, obviously there'll be a discussion tomorrow, and if there's a discussion that where Chief Benedict feels like he can get concise and get his division concise on what a regulation needs to look like, we can get that drafted and filed by next week so that we can conduct a formal rulemaking hearing in March. And that's kind of why we're here having this discussion now.
All right, so I'm going to call a vote to recommend the preview of amendment to chronic wasting disease rule 166001-34 to preview to the full commission for tomorrow. Wildlife Committee only. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the business of the Wildlife Committee.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Davenport. I'll now ask Commissioner Box, who is Chair of the Fisheries Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm the chair of the Fisheries Committee. Also on the committee with me are John McCarty, Ford Little, Steve Jones, and Monty Ballou. I would ask Travis Scott, Assistant Chief, to come forward and share with us changes to the sport fishing proclamation.
Thank you. I'd like to present recommendations for Sport Fishing Proclamation 2603. This is the timeline we've been proceeding through. Chief Henniger presented a preview at the December meeting. Since then, we've had a public comment period on those proposed changes. I'll present those at the end of this presentation. And today we're presenting what we would like to see the commission vote on. And tomorrow, of course, you will vote. These recommendations, if approved, will go into effect on August 1st. The first is some delayed harvest regulations we had. The first one is on Piney River, where we're going to remove that delayed harvest regulation. It was in effect from November 1st through the last day of February. It was catch and release only fishing. We conducted creel survey there, and we weren't getting much use during that time of the year, but we were getting more use during the harvest season after March. So we're going to continue to stock in the fall and winter months to provide a fishery, but we're going to allow harvest during that time to see if we can increase participation. For Big Soddy Creek in Hamilton County, we historically have not been able to stock that creek because of water temperatures and flows until November. And so we're just moving that regulation from October to November 1st to reflect when we normally get to stock. The next is waters with closed seasons. We've been working with our wildlife division on Catoosa WMA to provide more angler access to the WMA for fishing some of those streams there. And through that process, we came up to eliminate this April through December 31st guideline and just open it to fishing except during deer hunts and wild hog control seasons. As far as the part of the Bill Dance Signature Lakes program, we're undergoing 2 large renovations at Travis McNatt Lake at Big Hill Pond State Park and at Woodhaven Lake at Montgomery Bell State Park. Part of that, both lakes are currently drawn down. We're working to establish a contract with a private contractor to do a complete renovation, which includes killing any remaining fish that may be in those waters. There's still remnant water that not all of it could drain, to make sure we don't have any remaining fish so we could start fresh. Initially, there would be liming to improve the water quality. Then we would move to forage stocking, and then eventually the goal is to add bass, and of course it's going to take bass. We want to manage these as trophy bass fisheries. So initially we would like to have a catch and release only season on both of these lakes until we get those bass fisheries established where we want them. The next is the name change that went into effect based on the commission vote to change Herb Parsons Lake to Bill Dance Lake at Herb Parsons Refuge. This is just one example, but there were multiple instances within the proclamation where we had to make that change. Just wanted to represent that here. And then in the process, this is hard to see, I apologize. In the process of going through our proclamation, we found some relics that needed to be eliminated. There was a mention of a Land Between the Lakes wildlife management area, which no longer exists. So we struck that from the proclamation. And then there was a reference for areas closed to fishing for Woods Reservoir from a proclamation in 1974. And so as opposed to having that kind of vague statement in there, we actually added the wording from that proclamation to reflect what those closed areas are to make it simpler for our anglers to understand. On our public comments, it was open from December 5th through January 5th. We had 28 individuals submit comments. For the most part, folks were either neutral or supportive of their proposed recommendations. Overall, we asked for a satisfaction rating of their fishing in Tennessee. It was a 3.7 out of 5 average, and 72% of respondents rated their fishing experience in Tennessee at 4 or above. With that, I'll take any questions.
Committee members, any questions? Any questions from the full commission?
I'd just like to say y'all are putting in a really nice new boat ramp at Paris Landing as well on the Bill Dance Signature Series. It's going to be a huge ramp. Our heavy equipment crew's doing it, looking really good.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have any comments from the public? Seeing none, I would ask for a motion from the committee.
So moved.
A second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Your motion passes. Mr. Chairman, that's all the business of the Fisheries Committee.
Thank you, Chairman Box. I'm now going to ask Vice Chair Davenport to make a presentation for the Budget Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll call Deputy Director Frank Fiss to the podium. Thank you, Frank.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Well, I'll be able to provide a financial report through November of 25. We're caught up an extra month because of the way the timing worked out. I'll start with our boating fund, this operational fund. We are right on track. We're only about $2,000 off of where we thought we'd be at this time on income, and our expense is slightly higher than the 3-year average, but still within a reasonable rate. On the wildlife fund, we're slightly ahead on license income, but not a lot. $500,000 is not a lot in that on that scale. Our current expense to budget is at 28%, slightly higher than the 3-year average. On the wetland acquisition fund, you'll see our income year to date is $6.8 million. We're still holding that over $20 to $24 million rate of revenue from the real estate transfer tax. Our withdrawals are up to $13.7 million year to date in this fiscal year. That's we're moving more of that revenue. Let me back up. I'll try to back up. We're still moving more of that wetland acquisition fund to the wildlife fund to reimburse for law enforcement this year. So the goal again is to be withdrawing more than is coming in, so that we can lower that balance to a range of around $8 million, $7 million by the end of this fiscal year. So we're on track to do that. That's all I'm trying to tell you. And here's where our investments are right now. As of the end of November, I actually got December's during this meeting, and it hasn't really changed much, unfortunately, in the last month. But you'll see that we are earning, have positive increased value on these funds, and the SPIF is still earning about 3.9%. But those balances on the far right are where the two endowment funds are, the lifetime and watchable, and our wildlife and boating operation funds are the last two rows there. Are there any questions about our balances or investments?
Thank you, Deputy Director Fiss. Any questions from the Budget Committee? Any questions from full commission? Mr. Chairman, that concludes the business of the Budget Committee. Thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now turn it over to Commissioner Rhonda Moody for the Public and Legislative Relations Committee.
Thank you. I just want to remind everyone, the committee members for the Public Relations and Legislative Committee, myself, Rosemary McElhenney, Stan Butt, Chip Saltzman, John McCarty, and Haynes Torbett. At this time, I would like to ask General Counsel Tory Grimes to provide a recap of the naming request and an update after the public comment period.
Thank you, Chairman. We had two naming requests that the Commission voted, I think it was in August, to put in the process of public comment period. The first one was the Duck River access at Howard Bridge, and naming that access officially after Mr. Edward and Nancy Penrod. There was several members of the public commented, all positive in favor of that. And if you recall from the presentation then, both of those had many years of efforts of dedication to conservation in Tennessee. They were mentors to many young sportsmen in the Murray County area, and obviously we covered the key points in the proclamation that's before you. The second one would be the Elk River access at Vito Road. This initially started as a legislative request, and it came, and we once the commission got its naming policy, we did move this one forward. This one would be named after Mr. Paul Edgman. It was actually the county's very first boat ramp and access area, and Mr. Edgman was very active, a sportsman, dedicated turkey hunter, and very engaged in the local community. His brother, his nephew, all were former employees of the agency. He actually worked at the Old Game and Fish Commission. This is a this one had significant, I say significant, this one had both had several members of the public wrote in during the comment period, all with positive recommendations in favor of the commission taking this action. So that's my update for both of the matters on the agenda.
Thank you for that update and presenting those. Do I have any questions from the committee members? Seeing none. Any from the full commission? Seeing none. I will, at this time, entertain a motion from the committee members to present this on to full commission tomorrow. Thank you, Stan. All in favor? Any opposed? Chairman will move this on to commission tomorrow.
Thank you, Commissioner Moody. I think this is wrapping up our agenda. Do we have any members of the public that would like to make a comment before we adjourn? Yes, sir. I think I know your name, but if you please state it. And again, we appreciate you coming in here and giving us a presentation.
My name is Fred Walker from Maryville, Tennessee, and I'm trying to propose a flintlock deer hunting season for the state of Tennessee. And I just wanted to today give you maybe some nuances that people might not have thought about, some oddities or whatever else. One thing is that there is no FFL license required for a muzzleloader. I guess the federal government doesn't consider it a firearm. If you haven't thought about that, if I order in a .22 for my grandson, I've got to send it to an FFL dealer. I order in a muzzleloader, I don't. It comes straight to my house. So just something to think about. One of the other things that I did last week while it was nice and warm is I tried to take some photographs of open sights and deer. I know you can't see this, but what I did was set out a decoy, Montana decoy, and tried to take a photograph of the deer at 25 yards, at 50 yards, and at 75 yards to show you how little you can see of this deer at 50 and 75 yards because the deer is horizontal and your sights block horizontal on an open sight muzzleloader. But yet a person is vertical and is very easy to be seen through the open sights of a muzzleloader. So this is just kind of some nuances I wanted to present. If you want to look at the photographs, I have them here where you can see. I guess the other thing that I wanted to do, of course, I'm board of directors of CORA. We're having discussions with CORA. I have some books available. If any of the commissioners in the past have not gotten a CORA book that gives you the 100% complete history of North Cumberland Wildlife Management Area from 1987 upon conception. All the details of why we did what we did, how we funded, why we funded, how we funded, and what happened, exact details, and I have some available to the commissioners if they need them, want them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. That's very interesting. Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Moody.
I appreciate your comments and your presentation and your affiliation with CORA. And just to let everyone know, this past week, CORA lost one of its founding board members. Glenn Massengale passed away this past week. He was one of the founding members of CORA and a dear friend to us in the Upper Cumberland. He will be missed, so just keep his family in your prayers, please.
Thank you. Before we adjourn, do we have any other questions? Yes, sir. Come forward, please.
My name is Scott Summers. I brought a hand out there. Pass those to your left. Pass those to your right. As you can read, I'm Scott Summers. I'm not a biologist. I'm a realtor. I've been hunting turkeys all my life since 1968. I killed my first bird in '78 and only bring us up Y'all have any idea how many turkeys were harvested in '78? 44 birds. I thought I was pretty cool. I killed one, right? So anyway, what I'm here for, I want to propose, flip the page there. I just want to propose some ideas. I'm not very satisfied with the turkey season. I think y'all have done a fabulous job. How many of y'all hunt turkey? Show of hands. Everybody? How many killed two? Everybody? No? Yeah, right. And do y'all even have any idea who Jack Murray is? He's the reason we have turkeys in this state. I was talking to Joe, he had heard of him, but I grew up with Jack, and he was my hero, and he taught me more about turkeys than, honestly, you can read out of a book type thing. But anyway, I bring that up, and like I said, do y'all know what a limb hanger is? 1.5 inches. A turkey that'll hang by his spurs from a tree limb. Most people don't know that today. Hey, flip over to page 3 real quick. These are some possible changes I'd like to see for future seasons. Please don't let the season run past mid-May. There are pokes running around on the ground and you got the season open. I just don't think that's right. I'm not a biologist, but we need to cut it off. Could we start maybe just a little bit earlier? You know, I was talking to Joe, and I didn't realize some of this stuff may be already incorporated into the regulations, but it's now closest to April the 7th. So that's basically what I'm saying. I just wanted it to start a little early, but please end it before, you know, the end of Mother's Day. That's plenty late. If you hadn't killed 2 birds by then, go fishing, go play golf, go do something. You can read the rest of this, but I would like to see the ability to harvest 3 birds again in Tennessee. Unfortunately, I know a lot of people do it anyway, and their sisters and cousins and brothers check them in, but if you'll go to the very last page, I'm just thinking something like this. If in the western states they have zones, I know there's a problem in the southern portions, there's a problem in the west. They don't have the populations that the rest of the state does. I mean, could you consider having, like, y'all are up getting revenue, sell a 3rd turkey tag for people that where the populations would, sustain that. Because I mean, where I live, there's turkeys everywhere, and I drive all over the place in Tennessee selling land. I mean, that's what I do, and I know the populations down south are in trouble. In West Tennessee, depending on the flooding, we have different populations. So would y'all consider doing that, even with the non-residents? Sell them a turkey tag. Y'all want to raise some money? We got a lot of non-residents that hunt here now. Tennessee's become a turkey state to go to. And with these non-residents, let them bag a bird. If they want to shoot 2, charge them. Sell them a tag. But think about putting them in these zones where they're really high harvests. They're high populations. It might be a way for y'all to increase some revenue, but I really would like to see y'all go back to a 3 bird limit in some areas. You can read these other things I put in there, and these aren't just my opinion. I sat out in the duck blind last Sunday amongst 7 hunters, and we talked about this. Y'all talked about things yesterday. And Wally's the one that told me to get up here and do this. He said, I've been in here his ear about it, and he said, get up here and speak your 2 cents. So here I am. So if y'all would consider this, look at these. These suggestions are from a lot of turkey hunters. I do the governor's one-shot turkey hunt every year. You get to see hundreds of turkey hunters all at one time. I don't know if any of y'all do that, but I'm a fanatic about turkey hunting. So I wish y'all would allow or consider allowing a 3 bird limit in certain areas. Sell a tag. I mean, that's what I'm saying. So y'all need revenue. I'd like to see something like that occur. So y'all have any questions for me? No, but I'm up here a lot. Kingston Springs. I'm just covered up with them. I mean, I live with turkeys. They're in my yard all day, every day. They roost in my trees every night. I watch turkeys all the time. But now Wally and I are just friends over the years. But anyway, thank you for your time, and I appreciate what y'all do. I've known a bunch of the commissioners, and y'all do a fabulous job. So it's nice to meet you guys.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from Mr. Salmons?
Yeah, y'all got any questions? I do. When do you vote on the next turkey hunting regulations? I doubt this can occur this year, but when do y'all start adopting these things?
March and April.
We'll preview in March and vote in April.
Well, I'll be back. Thank y'all.
Please do, yeah. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to make a comment? Any commissioners? Well, I want to thank our partners who made presentations today. We really appreciate you. Tennessee Tech, Ducks Unlimited Canada. Howie, thank you for coming all the way down here. Appreciate it. Always great to see everyone. Do I have a motion to adjourn? A second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, ayes have it. Meeting adjourned.